Hello.
Jack.
Hello.
I can hear you
Thought
guys.
that heard me.
Sounds like I was getting something there.
Hey everyone, my name is Connor Tibbs. Grew up in Southern California, currently living in Washington State, working in the medical field, and I am now the fourth player for the main HotA campaign.
Yeah! Woo! Fuck yeah!
I guess I'm the unknown. I'm Matt Knowles. I'm a viewer of HotA. I DM for our beloved bard Kyle, and I currently live in Oregon, just south of where Connor's at. I imagine. So I've been playing D&D, and I'm here to talk about dragons.
I'll go, sure. Why not? Kyle. Hey everyone, Kyle here, York, Pennsylvania, coming at you live for a little RDI action. But you may know me as something else. Quite possibly everyone's favorite halfling bard, Philly Shenanigans. You might know me as that. I heard we were talking about dragons, so I figured I'd bring my own dragon to the party. Yeah. The mighty Trogdor. So I'm going to put him away just so he doesn't terrorize everything.
Is that actually what you named it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. My kids can't stop saying that, by the way. They're like, they didn't understand it, obviously. It's kind of old school. But once I showed them the video, it was over. So I will put them away so he doesn't, terrorize any peasants or nothing.
Okay, I'm Kayla. I've been on here quite a few times, and I was on the stream for a little bit as everyone's least favorite NPC ever, Lilesh. She's well hated and well loved, I guess. I don't know. And that's me.
They're saying they can't hear you. They're saying they can't hear you. Shadow killed 69. I can't hear Sean.
Damn it.
Gus Sean? Shadow kill? I mean, I can hear you.
I can hear you too, Sean.
Only Sean, apparently.
Go, Kyle.
Okay.
Do a dance.
Dance, monkey.
Dance.
Constantly looping on
Kyle,
something.
you're not being very entertaining.
So,
Still-
Red Dragon in. Am I right?
Yeah.
I should be working now. Am I coming through on the stream now?
Sounds like it.
Hey.
There we go. All right. So if anybody is curious, this is a Dungeons & Dragons talk show, and today's subject is going to be Let's Talk Dragons. So dragons is a very, very big topic, and so we have a certain structure we're going to try to follow, but a lot of it's just going to be, we're just going to talk about it. So if anybody's watching in the chat, feel free to say anything that you like about dragons, or any questions you have about dragons. We'll try to address them. So we're going to go through and talk about chromatic, then metallic, the draconic deities, half dragons, and then at the end we are going to go over some news for the channel. And then we'll open up for some viewer Q&A. That's the main portion where we're going to answer any questions you guys have. But if you guys have any, throw it up there if we notice, and we'll try to address them if we have time. And we will also be doing a raffle at the very end, so you guys can try to win some HotA points. And if we have enough people in the stream, we can give away some HotA tokens as a prize. So all the players have these tokens, and it's got our symbol and everything on it. And we'd love for you guys to be able to join the HotA family. All right, so chromatic dragons. Well, before we get into the specific chromatic, let's just do a brief overview of dragons and what they are and why it's part of the name of the game we all love.
Oh, just anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone on that one?
Yeah, it's a talk show. It's not just about me.
Excuse me.
So, I mean, probably the first exposure to dragons I had was growing up watching a Disney movie, Beauty and the Beast, when, not Beauty and the Beast, my gosh, Sleeping Beauty.
I was about
When
to say.
the witch Maleficent turned into this badass dragon and just started breathing green fire everywhere.
Green flame. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. And from then on, I mean, dragons just sort of pop up everywhere, from various cultures, from like South America and the Aztecs with the Quetzals to Eastern Asia with Chinese versions of the dragons. They're just everywhere. And I think they're very interesting because they kind of go from like, there are some dragons that are more like on the bestial side, like the apex predator, versus like almost like demigods that almost act as like benevolent powers towards mankind. And it's sort of just like the very broad spectrum that dragons fill in fantasy. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, what I think whoa, I'm like fleshed out. There we go. Is that every ancient culture has its own mythology about dragons. And I think that is absolutely fascinating, because there's so many variances with just, old ancient stories from everywhere, but they all have dragons. And, it's kind of a cultish thing, with people who think that dragons were real, because we don't have substantial evidence in the real world, but we have dinosaurs, and so there's a lot of things to relate to that. So first question is, in real life, do you guys think dragons were real? We don't have fossil evidence, but because so many unrelated ancient cultures all have similar stories of it, does that make it plausible? At least plausible. An example is like the flood. So yeah, it's in the Bible, but it's also in many other cultures' ancient texts. It's not Moses, but there was a flood event. So people who are not religious may find just the fact that multiple cultures, completely unrelated, have the same event in their mythology. So do you guys think that makes dragons plausible?
Definitely.
Okay.
As a kid growing up, I was a huge dinosaur nerd.
Okay.
And that correlation between dinosaurs and dragons is what originally drew me to them. And it's a solid theory that a culture coming across dinosaur bones, not knowing what these were, would come up with a creature that would fit the size and general shape of those bones, a reptilian creature that had fantastical powers because it's huge. Let's make it big and scary. What's the scariest thing known to man? Fire. Okay, let's start with fire. Nick breathes fire now. That's scary. And you get these stories that cross different continents and build these cultures. And while we call them dragons, different languages call them different things, but we know them to mean dragon because that's what it means to us in English. So it stands to reason that that's the connection. it could be that they actually existed as we are expecting them to be. We just don't have any evidence to back it up besides what we think are dinosaurs.
Because dragon comes from Latin, which just means large serpent, or, so with reptiles, as we know, they grow to the size of whatever they can eat and what their captivity allows. Same with crocodiles. Like crocodiles, even if it's the same species of ones that get to 1,000 pounds, if they're in a small area, or if there's only like small turtles or frogs to eat, they don't get any bigger. So some of the theories about plausibility of dragons would be during the dinosaur time there'd be bigger prey to eat, that the reptiles would grow bigger just like the dinosaurs would have, which I think is really awesome, whether or not they were real or not, just going along what we know.
Right.
You also got to think at that time, human beings were significantly smaller.
Yep.
As far as height and all that stuff. So even just like seeing a crocodile is like already it's like, oh shit. But then it's like, oh, I'm gonna die.
Well,
so,
yeah. There's a huge tangent I was about to go on, but we'll stick with dragons. Sorry, we'll keep it reeled in. Yeah, and also dragons were huge in the Mesopotamia culture and their lore and stuff like that too, with all their stuff. But anyway, so coming back to D&D dragons, why are dragons such a huge part of D&D? Obviously, it's half of the name. But why dragons? I mean, there's beholders, there's other creatures that are, like Tarask. Tarask could kick the ass of a dragon. Why is it not called Dungeons Tarask? Why dragons?
Despite
an alliteration.
That was going to be my answer.
All right, thanks for coming, everybody. We'll see you next week.
Alliteration is definitely the primary. I have a feeling it has a lot to do with the pop culture at the time.
Okay.
The Lord of the Rings being one of the major fantasy pop cultures at that time. One of the biggest threats in that setting, in that story, during The Hobbit was Smaug, who was a dragon.
Okay.
So you bring that forward into the modern age, and now it's on everybody's mind. Let's come up with a grand adventure like Tolkien wrote and make it into a game. And hence D&D.
Okay. Do you guys think
I have a theory.
I
have a theory.
Okay,
I have
go
a theory. It kind of ties in with the first question. Just the overall question of why dragons. Connor had mentioned about one of the first dragons that he can remember is from Sleeping Beauty. One of the first dragons that I can remember, even just from reading books, is like King Arthur kind of stories, right?
Okay.
And when you kind of tie in, like, there's so many ways D&D can go. We all know that. But, like, I think, its main core is, like, knights in shining armor, saving the princess, fighting the fucking dragon. Like, that's just, like, maybe, like, the home base of, like, the thought concept of, like, the good versus the evil. It's the adventurers going out to slay the beast. Now, then you can take beast and make it, whatever you want. But I think maybe just at its core, it's called Dungeons and Dragons because, again, it at the very basic, almost default thought is you're the hero. You go through the dungeon to fight the dragon to save the princess. Like that, like ABCs of the thought. Now, again, it's not, you can go anywhere with it, anywhere. But I kind of like in my own thought just have like that whole King Arthur aspect of just knights fighting dragons, man. Like if there's nothing else, you could always fall back to that, and you're deep into D&D if nothing else. So maybe that's kind of why. I don't know.
If you look at physically a dragon, it is a very scary looking creature. It's very badass looking, so that alone makes it cool. But do you think that, for instance, in D&D, with dragons being powerful, they're always bosses or big events. It's not a minion, you know what I mean? Like, they're always big deals with layers and like finale moments. But do you think that they are big bad because of the reputation that they have that was pre-established, or do you think that they're the big one, or is it the other way around? Which do you think is? Does that make sense what I'm asking, or was that confusing?
Which came first, the danger or the dragon?
Right. The chicken or the egg, yeah. Yeah, what do you guys think about that?
Well, if I were to go by the information available in like monster manuals and 5e stuff, a big part of at least the chromatic dragons, which we haven't quite gotten to yet, but is their sense of ego and how important that is to them. And so they wouldn't settle for being a minion. If they found something bigger than them that could possibly threaten them, they would probably just run away and try to set up themselves as the big bad elsewhere in a territory that's not currently inhabited. So I think that's, in my opinion, a psychological reason why they're kind of the big bads, because they won't settle for anything else.
Okay.
Makes perfect sense. I personally like having one of the things I enjoy about D&D is how rich they make the lore for their monsters.
Yes.
Dragons specifically, they created a book completely dedicated to them, the Draconomicon, and they go over not only their mentalities but the physicality of a dragon. And if you look at what in the creators' minds was what made a dragon, it's feline-esque in its form. Most of its muscle structure is feline. It's got talons the size of a man, wings, breath weapon, and magic. To me, that all those mechanics spell
and very intelligent too. I think that's one of the main things that separates dragons from many other powerful monsters. I didn't mean to cut you off, but the fact that they're hyper intelligent is, I think, one of the main things that sets them apart. But go ahead.
Right. And going back with the ego, you throw that into the mix, and now you have a heavy ego with a lot of power and a high intelligence. There's no minion there. That is not a minion. An advisor at the most, or at the very least. But dragon's gonna be a big bad wherever they go.
What I love about good storytelling and what humans do with our stories is we insert our own personification into our stories and our monsters. So like, say a dragon was real, it wouldn't have a human personality, but we project that into this fantasy creature and we give it super exaggerated hyperbole versions of ourselves. And I think that's part of what makes them so terrifying to us, is because we know that humanity has evil tendencies, and when we exaggerate it in something that is super powerful, it's like our worst nightmare. I think that's also what makes them so terrifying, and also so like revered as well. Is just, you don't fuck with a dragon. You know, like, when do you ever see anything with a dragon on it that's not trying to be badass, unless it's like a cartoony one with big anime eyes, you know? But other than that, like, you throw a dragon on anything, it instantly becomes cooler, you know?
Even the cute ones, like, even the cute dragons just make things cooler.
Now, do you think that is like bacon, right? So that is, everybody says they love bacon because it's cool to like bacon. Bacon is good, but bacon is cool because it's cool. Because we decide, do you think dragons are like that at all? Like, it's cool to like dragons because we say it's cool, so we like them because it's cool to like them?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I mean, I could see from, now that I know what your perspective is, from the other side, I could see how that at least could like be seated in, like, you know, like the elementary school phase, like bringing in trading cards and or a cool poster with a dragon on, and everyone goes, "Oh, so cool, so cool!" And so you're like, "Oh yeah, that's oh yeah, that's really cool." Or you find things that you can relate to that are cool about it,
right?
And it's not super hard because, as we've talked about, they are pretty badass freaking characters.
They are. And
so yeah, it's sort of like almost like a whirlpool, like on the edge. Oh yeah, I'm a dragon freak too now.
Honestly, I think that the dragons themselves have we've imprinted these qualities on them, yes, but per their design, like what we think should be a dragon. Well, if it's going to be a monster, it's going to be very large, it's going to be very scary, it's going to have a lot of power. Those things are cool. They're intrinsically cool. We just get drawn to that. So by even a dragon that you didn't know breathed fire, or you didn't know was supposed to be this apex predator. Just seeing an image of a dragon immediately invokes that. That is awesome.
Okay.
I think it's kind of like a combination of both. Like you see it and you get the initial awe factor and it just draws you in. And you're like, oh, I want to know more about this thing because it's so cool. And then like the more you learn about it, the more you're like, this thing is really dangerous, which makes it even cooler. And it's really smart too. So not only can it do a bunch of damage, but it knows how to use that to do the most damage it possibly can. And then just like the more you learn about dragons, like the easier it is to fall in love with them completely. And they're the absolute greatest. I love them so much.
Now, here's a question, and think about before you answer. As awesome as dragons are, do you wish they were real?
No.
I watched that movie Rain of Fire like 2-3 weeks ago, and that looked pretty fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
No.
I want like a baby dragon that I can raise as my friend.
Like a
The
cat.
dwarf
Yeah.
dragons.
So
Yeah.
I think this is an interesting intellectual concept of like, it's something we want and we revere, and it's gobsmacks us, but none of us want it to be real.
Well, because I think the reason that like so many people like have that, oh man, I wish dragons were real, was because in the stories, dragons are this huge, terrifying embodiment of evil, just pure evil, and they do terrible things, and it's easy to hate them. And in the end, they're always beaten, which is not something you see in humanity today. Like you see horrible, horrific things happening to good, innocent people, and you can't really do anything about it because it's not a physical embodiment of something that you can stab with a sword. It's just the way things are. And so I think that's why a lot of people are like, oh man, I wish there was a dragon, I could just go fight it and kill it, because that's it's something easy to pin all the bad things on that you see happening. And if evil were to take a form like a dragon or something else, then you could actually go kill it. But
yeah, we could kill it with today's technology and today's weapons. Like we got jets, we got rockets, we got like we could take them down now. But if they had coexisted with us back when we didn't have that, I don't see how humanity could have survived. Especially if they had the intelligence that we portray in them now. If they were just beasts, maybe we could have made it, but yeah.
We'd be working in the dragon mines right now.
Yeah, we would. They would be
Our overlords.
we'd be the kobolds in their stories, yeah.
Yep. The thought of dragons being real, it pretty much just terrifies me.
Yeah.
If they were like small, pseudo dragon sized, sure, okay, that's something you could deal with. But full on dragon, wholesale destruction, no.
So the portrayal of dragons in, say, like Game of Thrones. Have you guys watched Game of Thrones?
Yeah.
So I mean, she, mother of dragons, she rides them. They listen to her for the most part. They come to her aid and everything. Do you think that if they were, as they are in D&D, that they would ever submit themselves to authority of humans?
no.
No.
Not as we portray them with intelligence. I mean, the Game of Thrones ones have an intelligence to a point, but still have more of a bestial side to them, if anything. Like,
Yes.
correct me if I'm wrong, only like for the most part, dragons in D&D have a high enough intelligence that they have one, if not multiple, fucking languages that they can talk to you, let alone anything else. But in the Game of Thrones, I guess maybe that's what makes them even a little bit more believable that she can fucking train them and ride them, is because they're just like any other. You're like having a lion cub or a fucking elephant calf or some shit. If you have it when they're little, yeah, of course they're gonna look at. Now again, they're fucking huge and can fly and do all this other crazy stuff. But I mean, that's one big just thinking off the top of the cup, that's probably one of the main differences between a Game of Thrones dragon and a D&D dragon is intelligence. Like the Game of Thrones is definitely more of an elephant that she tamed than anything, and in the D&D verse, it's dragons would be running shit. Like that's just how that is. So, I mean, that's definitely one of the bigger differences of anything, right off the cuff.
But if you take somebody who is new to D&D, and you look at the influence that they've had of dragons, so we'll just use Game of Thrones as a big one, right? So if they come in with a preconceived notion of that's what a dragon is, because it's amazing and it's mainstream Hollywood, but then you come into a D&D setting, and that's what you're expecting these things to be. So what are just from a DM standpoint, because I think we've all DM'd before, I'm curious how you guys personify dragons. How do you use them and to correct the stigma that is dragons to somebody who's new to D&D, because they are quite different in our game universe.
I love introducing them as very cunning creatures, where they may not always appear as a dragon right off the bat. They may appear as, a halfling or a human or someone else using the polymorph that they innately have to introduce themselves to the party in some way, not necessarily as a show of power, but a show of subtlety. Otherwise, sometimes it's fun just to have a red dragon fly over and scare the pants out of everyone.
Yeah, a few months ago when my homebrew game first entered the Shadowfell, I decided to set the mood of just like, this is a fucking dangerous place by introducing them to a black dragon that broke out from under a frozen river and got an entire sneak attack round on them. And they had to run because that almost dropped them. And so, yeah, just, again, this feeling of just like, holy fucking cow, there's a dragon now. What do we do? Yeah. And so that's how I used it.
I mean, I think the game that I DM for, and then my kids' game, like, none of the groups have met a dragon, but things have been mentioned, it's been rumored, it's been hearsay, it's been whispered kind of thing, which, I mean, if they never even come up, it's still kind of cool. Like, just to have that shroud of mystery around them. I think that's certainly I think that's true in a lot of games where, depending on the setting that you go with, but for the most part, it's unless it's made very apparent from the beginning that multiple dragons fly through the sky on a Tuesday, that kind of thing. But I mean, for the most part, I would have to guess that lots of DMs have it in a very similar fashion, at least to get started, where unless it's openly said in the beginning, this world has no dragons, most people think in the Dungeons & Dragons game, they're out there somewhere. And, I mean, kind of going in with a blind eye to it, too, is kind of fun, because you could very well, as a DM, play all dragons as that Game of Thrones thing, if you really wanted to, where there are no overlordy dragons. They're all wild and out there, or they're all intelligent as fuck, and one rules an empire over here or something. I mean, there's lots of ways you can go about it. But for my own personal DM, just whispers about it, which makes it kind of fun,
Ominous whispers.
What about you, Kayla?
Yeah, I usually take the same kind of approach that Kyle did, where like people talk about dragons, and like if there's any kind of hint of a dragon nearby, like especially in the game that I had been running, one of my players was a dragonborn, and instantly she'd be like, do I know anything about this dragon? And like players actively want to find the dragon in the game, and they will seek out whatever information you can give them. The fun thing to do is to give them information that's true, but very lightly sprinkled amongst information that is false. Because if there is such a beast as a dragon, there's going to be all kinds of crazy rumors about it, not just facts. People aren't going to be like, oh, well, this dragon has fire breath. Like, people are going to be like, no, he can do so much more damage than just fire. I saw him burn down a whole city just like in 6 seconds, like that. People are always going to hype the calamity.
Which is fun.
Which is really fun. So that's something that I really enjoy doing. But I mean, especially because one of my players was a dragonborn, she knew a lot about dragons already, and so whenever I was going over the beginning parts of the game, getting everyone's character ready, I sat down and I kind of explained dragons to her, and I was like, they're not like beast dragons. They're still beasts and they're still terrifying, but they're incredibly intelligent and they're incredibly smart, especially, green dragons are the most cunning. And, I kind of went through like briefly all the different personalities that she would know. But yeah, I think that whispers is one of the best ways to tease it, the truth behind the ever so popular image of the dragon. I think that's a good way to do it.
Are you guys familiar with the draconic giant lore about the ancient war that they had long ago? You guys familiar with that at all? So that was a really fun aspect.
Oh wait, yeah.
Yes.
Is that where they like fought the whole time, and then like they were like, "Fuck it, no one's winning, so let's just play a game of chess." And then they still had a tie?
Yes, yep, and they came to a tie. Yeah. So I incorporated that into a campaign a while ago, and that was amazing. I learned so much about dragons and giants, and I thought that was just a fantastic aspect to bring into a game setting. But it kind of ended up consuming the regular storyline because it's something so big and epic. You know, 1,000-year war between giants and dragons. I mean, like, who else is going to be an antagonist? You know, like, so I think that kind of it got to such an epic scale that it consumed everything else. I think that's kind of why I shied away from dragons at all in this HotA campaign. Obviously, the Horsemen of the Apocalypse are the bad guys, but I kind of felt that throwing in dragons is kind of a distraction from, you know, the invaders. So that's just kind of why we shied away from it for this campaign, because it can very quickly consume anything else. So
yeah, I find a good way around that is two strategies. One, make them very rare. And two, even if you do make them hyper intelligent and all the ego and all that stuff, make it so that humans are actually so far beneath their notice that they don't freaking want human followers. It's beneath them. They will go to like the wonders of the world, like the amazing Aurora Borealis and the giant iceberg, and that's where a white dragon will have its den, far away from any human sort of thing, or like a giant rainforest in the Amazon type of place for a green dragon, things that humans haven't tainted with their hands and dragon's eyes. And so you actually have to quest to find these mythological creatures, so they don't take over everything in your campaign.
You said taint, by the way.
I did.
Child.
Xenophobic dragons, I like it.
All right, so I'm going to actually switch up the order a little bit. So originally it was supposed to be chromatic, metallic, and then deities. I think it would make more sense to talk about the deities because that is the origin of dragons, and it would explain the differences between chromatic and metallic. If anybody has joined us, I noticed our follower count is a little bit higher. This is Red Dragon Inn. This is a D&D talk show. So welcome everybody. And the topic for tonight is dragons. Very big topic. And exactly there you go. Everybody is passionate about dragons if you play D&D. So that's why that is the topic for tonight. And just so anybody knows, you are accruing 2 kinds of currency while watching our stream. There's HotA points and there is loyalty points. So if you scroll down on the Twitch page, there's some boxes that explain how that works. You guys can play mini games. There's heists, free-for-alls. You guys can do battle royale, stuff like that. Those points can be used on Tuesdays when we stream our campaign for buying potions and stuff like that for our players. What was that?
Oh, sorry.
He put a little dragon on his shoulder.
Oh, nice.
It was cute.
All right, so I think that people either know a shit ton about dragons or they know nothing. So let's kind of dive into the lore of dragons now that we've kind of got warmed up just talking about them in general. Where did dragons come from? And explain the differences. Let's have Matt be the first one on this one. What is the difference between a chromatic and a metallic, other than just the colors? What separates the two?
Typically, it has a lot to do with their alignment. The chromatic dragons are typically evil, whereas the metallic dragons are typically good, and this is because they stem from, well, since we're talking about deities, the 2 dragon gods, Tiamat and Bahamut.
Perfect. Okay, and which one is the good and which one's the evil?
Bahamut is the good. The metallic dragon, he's known as the platinum dragon, and Tiamat is the evil one. She's known as the chromatic queen. She's the 5-headed dragon of evil. Also featured in the D&D cartoon, which is where I first met Tiamat and fell in love with dragons.
Okay. So her 5 heads, what is significant about those?
They represent each color of the chromatic spectrum.
There you go. Okay. So the deities, where did Bahamut and Tiamat come from originally? Does anybody know?
Io.
Io.
Specifically.
Okay.
There's 2 different lores out there.
Yes.
4th edition introduced the lore of Io versus the Primordials. He died. Io was true neutral and had the aspect of all chaos and all good and all evil within him. And when he died, he split into 2, into Bahamut and Tiamat.
Okay.
In 3rd edition lore, Bahamut and Tiamat existed alongside Io, being created by him as akin to brother and sister.
Okay.
Originally supposed to be a mating pair, their differences caused them to form a rift, and they never actually hooked up. But they still created the individual dragons, the different lines that they have, the metallic and chromatic.
Okay. And what do you guys think about the parallel of a chromatic and a metallic have a counterpart?
Well, all but one.
Which one?
The green dragon does not have a counterpoint.
Okay.
If you look, and this is just going by 5e. I don't know about previous editions in the Draconomicon. But yeah, that is the only one that deals poison damage for one. But also it is, according to the lore of 5e, just well known for being the most intelligent and devious. And sometimes like preferring to use cunning and even magic as opposed to brute force, which makes those very interesting in my eyes.
Okay. Okay. So if we have one aspect of the lore for D&D views Io not as only the draconic god, but as the main god for creating life, and that's where everybody. So if you thought of like who God is, it would be Io. So I think that's interesting. If you have that aspect of that's where everything came from was dragons, and so that kind of puts a reverence to anything draconic. If you had that aspect as an anchor in the lore, what do you think that does for anything, say half dragons or dragonborn?
It would give them a bit of a social tier. They would probably be revered as closer to the dragon creators, depending on the campaign setting.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Just curious for that part. All right, so we have we have Io, and then we have the Bahamut and Tiamat, and then from there we branch to the chromatic and the metallic. So what do you guys have about anything with the deity side of it? Do you guys think it is a good thing to incorporate into campaigns, or I mean it's campaign specific, but what do you guys think just as a general? If you're going to have dragons, do you think there should be that lore in there, or should it just be he's a bad guy in a lair and you got to kill it?
Deities are scary for me when I'm GMing because there's just so many out there, and just like the circles of them. And my campaign I'm running right now, I have one person who's building from Norse mythology, one person who's building from Mesopotamian mythology, one person who's doing Faerun, and it's just all over the place. And so it's just like I'm doing regions, and so I'm leaving the dragon out of it because I don't need another headache to include in the Rubik's Cube that is the deities of my world.
Yeah, it can get complicated real fast.
I do think in a heavily religious campaign, especially if you do have a prominent presence of dragons, having the deities there as a motive for the dragons really helps, because it gives you a perspective of, okay, so this dragon exists, what is its personal motives, does it revere its deity, and does that drive it to do what it does?
Okay.
I think that deities will come up a lot more in religious campaigns, but I think they're just as important in non-religious campaigns, because to me, like, deities are the story behind the story, and the building of the whole deity realm is just really fascinating to me. It's something that I really enjoy doing because it's like making your own little story, but on a much bigger scale, and they all have crazy intense powers. But anyway, that's the whole deity side rant. But in regards to like draconic deities specifically, I didn't use the official lore whenever I was doing my campaign, but I did come up with kind of like my own lore for the dragons, and it was up to the dragons whether they believed it personally or not, kind of like it's up to humans whether or not they subscribe to a particular religion. And I made like several different types of things that they could believe in, but one of them was fact that I knew about. But anyway, yeah, I think that deities are important even when you're dealing with dragons, just because it's something that might come up, and in case the players do get the chance to discover that, it's always very incredible to see players discovering things like that, in my opinion.
Yeah.
One of the things I loved about 3rd edition is actually the dragons had an entire pantheon. There was a Stillabor, there's Garrix, there's I've got a whole list of them here. Balazir was another one. But yeah, they've got their own religious pantheon, and each dragon had its own facet, its own domains, like its own responsibilities to that pantheon. So it's something that is really fun to incorporate in a dragon heavy campaign, where that it either is the only pantheon, or now you have these 2, 3, 4 pantheons going side by side for different cultures. And so the dragons revere the dragon gods, whereas the humans may revere the Norse gods, and the elves may revere the Faerun gods. And it can add a whole new dynamic to how the world functions, because the core of religion is faith and what you believe.
Right. And yeah, and that's all about perspective, which is a really great thing to have in a game, is differing perspectives. So if you keep it ambiguous with like the evil, if you look at the alignment, evil doesn't view themselves as evil, they view themselves as correct, and that good is wrong, which I think is fantastic. Having it be based on perception, like don't have the evil guys be like, yes, we're evil and that's the wrong choice and we just do bad stuff because we're against the natural tendencies. Is no, we view the natural tendencies as evil as the right way to go. So I love that aspect, and the fact that evil is usually centered towards self, and the good is being viewed toward the collective. So looking at the branching of the draconic deities, and that's where, if you have that in a campaign, that's where alignment is based from. How do you guys feel alignment matches up with these deities and the chromatic and the metallic?
I think for the core 2, just Tiamat and Bahamut, it feels very limiting, because with Bahamut, it's lawful good. This is they're the complete opposite ends of the spectrum. If you fall somewhere in the middle of those lines, well, you may not always agree with Bahamut. Sometimes you might agree with Tiamat, but you follow Bahamut. So does that mean you have to make the choice to err on the side of Bahamut, or do you err on the side of Tiamat? I do feel like it gives a lot of potential for a swing alignment, where you may have to make a hard choice, and who do you follow?
Because if you look at, because there's good and evil, but then there's also the chaotic and lawful aspects. So someone who is neutral or chaotic, they may view being lawful as an evil side. So if you take the good and evil out of it, someone who thinks that regulations is control, they can view that as evil, like something trying to suppress you. So I mean, it's because it's it's a shifting grid. It's not just a two-way axis. How do you guys view the lawful and the chaotic spectrum in the draconic side? Does that make sense?
Yeah. I mean, kind of going back to the alignment thing, I do feel like even in 5e, like if you go through the monster manual, I'm pretty sure all of them are either good or evil. There are no neutral dragons at all. which, as Matt said, is kind of limiting, and maybe it's sort of the idea that dragons aren't they're hyper intelligent, but they aren't necessarily human, and they are comfortable with what they are, and therefore will go towards extremes more. But I don't know. I think it would be very interesting to create an NPC of a more neutral dragon that's sort of struggling with the world around them and just where they fit.
I think that ties into a point that you brought up earlier, where every dragon, good or evil, has an ego, a very strong ego. That drives a lot of emotion, which can drive them to those extremes: good, evil, law, chaos. A very emotional gold dragon is going to want to do things for the greater good and follow the law. Like, it has a strict code that it adheres to, and it adheres to it very strongly because it feels very strongly about that, because it's tied directly to their ego.
But if they're ego-based, even if they're good, that makes them self-centered, which would be, from a perspective outside of that one dragon, would be evil.
Potentially.
More insufferable.
That's more along the lines of what I was thinking. More insufferable, because it's like the classic 3rd edition paladin, lawful good all the way. I must always do the right thing because I am lawful good. That sounds pretty much like a gold dragon to me.
Okay.
Well, just to kind of backtrack just a wee little bit when we were talking about just the top tier Bahamut and Tiamat stuff. From another perspective, it does kind of make things a little bit easier in a way too. If you were DMing, or even as a player, if you were DMing and had someone following one of those two, or you were a player following one of those two, it might even like for beginner to mid-level starting players, it might actually kind of help a little bit in terms of the role-playing aspects, or what they do, or what they feel they should do, where their first character was a half-elf ranger, or something, kind of defaulty-ish, if you will. But if they want to play something a little different, and they're a freaking dragonborn follower of Bahamut or something, it kind of, we were talking here before about, like, one side is lawful, one side is chaotic. Like, it could lead to some really fun and different and unique role playing for that character without it being too out of frame for them to follow the concept of it. You follow me there for a second? Like, if they were going to be a follower of Bahamut, they don't necessarily have to be the lawful good paladin. They could be whatever. But the point I'm trying to make is that it could actually lead to some really cool RP for someone who's never taken that kind of role before to, explore. And what happens if you run into someone who is a Tiamat? Like, do you automatically just fight them? Like, fuck that guy. Like, I see he's got a Tiamat thing on. Like, I gotta fight him. I don't know what that looks like, but it could be really cool. Or NPCs doing that, or you interact with an NPC like that. So I think it actually could lead to some really cool role-playing moments too, just understanding that concept. If that wasn't the game at all, well, you're kind of losing out on that. But if we were talking about, like, religious DM themes and things like that, there's no guesswork with that, which is kind of nice. Someone could follow Saloon or something. What is she, like the magic or the moon and stuff? That could go 14 different directions. I don't know what that means. It's different for everyone. But Bahamut, you kind of know what you got, which is kind of nice. Maybe, like I said, for like beginner players who just don't know what they should do yet. This is very simple. Just be good all the time. Just do these things. Be honorable. Like, cool, I can do that. And maybe it's a easier transition for them to do that too.
Streamline things, basically. Makes it a lot easier for a newer player or a midland player to get into the RP aspects. I see that.
And kind of like how you were saying, like, how you have familiar tropes, like you were mentioning Camelot and King Arthur, just follow the code of chivalry, and you have Bahamut.
Yep. To a T.
Yeah.
Do you guys think the polymorph abilities of dragons are overutilized or underutilized?
I personally think they are underutilized, at least in the examples that I've seen. I love the idea that a dragon could not be a dragon, and totally harass the party up to like just either I've had a buddy of mine play a copper dragon, a little copper dragon that he used to run around as a halfling bard. Funny, halfling bards seem to be a common thing.
But he
they're
wasn't
really
everyone's favorite
I'm playing
halfling
one.
bard.
It's everybody's favorite. But so he ran around as a copper dragon halfling bard, and was always a halfling until we got into combat or something came up, and he'd poof into a copper dragon, like little copper dragon. He was like a wormling at the time. But the DM ruled that so that there wasn't a whole lot of conflict in towns and whatnot, he could use his polymorph ability to before he actually gained it as a copper dragon. But I feel like there's a lot of stuff that could be done with a shape-shifted dragon. To have a shape-shifted black dragon be a bunny in the middle of the field, randomly just destroy a party because it looked like a bunny.
We needed dinner, man. We shot an arrow at it, and then oh shit.
The bunny dropped to 0 hit points, but the dragon, however, woke up pissed.
Okay.
I do have something tying back to the dichotomy between metallic and chromatic.
Sure, yeah.
A campaign setting that I found where all dragons started as a neutral, and they were two halves of this one whole, and depending on the way the dragon was raised, the environment it was exposed to, caused it to either mature into a metallic dragon or into a chromatic.
Metallic. Okay, sorry.
Yeah, metallic and chromatic. So that, say, a red dragon was originally a gold dragon that got burned and embraced fire, so the scales slowly turned to this burnished red.
Okay.
Or a copper dragon started off as a copper dragon, but then the scales corroded and turned to a kind of a bluish steel, becoming a blue dragon.
Okay.
And that always fascinated me because it breaks up that strict, you're either this or you're this as a dragon. Because you could have that dragon that is half and half, where it's half corrupted but still maintains some of its original coloring and its original aspect. So you have neutral dragons.
What do you guys think about, so Bahamut is the only platinum one. What would you guys think about a platinum half dragon or dragonborn?
Sounds like it needs a prophecy.
Yes. Very much so.
That'd be pretty cool. All right, we're going to take our first 5-minute break. So anyone who is watching, there are lots of minigames. We're going to try to jump in and do some of the minigames with you guys. The most popular one is exclamation point heist, and it's pretty much a bank heist. So you just jump in there and you have different odds of winning. So if you guys haven't followed us, give us a follow. It'd help us out a lot. If you guys choose to subscribe in the giveaways that we do at the end of the stream, it will double your luck. And you will also get custom emotes, and you'll also get a icon of the goddess, which is going to be prevalent in the campaign. So I'll throw up what it looks like. So we got 3 different tiers, so you guys can get those emotes if you subscribe. But we will be back in 5 minutes. Thanks for sticking around with us, and we'll be right back.
Wow.
All right, we are back. Thanks everyone for sticking with us. It's Red Dragon Inn D&D talk show, and today's topic is dragons. All right, yeah, Matt, what did you want to go to next?
So going back a little bit to subservient dragons, we were talking about how dragons in D&D have more intelligence. In previous editions, you could actually attract dragon cohorts if you had the leadership skill or the feat, where you could actually get a silver dragon if your alignment was aligned with them. if you have high enough level and high enough renown, you would attract dragons as cohorts, which would be more of a partnership because they don't necessarily serve, but they ally themselves with you. And then even further than that, if you did want to force a dragon to submit, you would just have to go on a quest to find an orb of dragon kind, and then every dragon within the vicinity would hate you. But you could control a dragon of that kind. So those are ways to make these dragons subservient.
How do you think dragons would feel about said orbs?
Oh, they hate them. Like, in the lore behind them is that the orbs of dragonkind were created to control dragons, and any dragon who finds a possessor of that orb is obligated, good or evil, to destroy him, because that much power in their in the possessions of a mortal or non-dragon would be too much.
And so is that one of the things that crosses the chromatics and metallics?
Yes, like even if at least if my memory serves, I'll have to refresh myself on the lore, but even if a chromatic dragon came across a wielder of a metallic orb, they would be obligated to destroy that person to prevent that class of dragon from being controlled.
And something that chromatic and metallic have in common is their hatred for giants as well. So that can also be a thing to tie them together, to where if giants were a common enemy threatening both, they would put aside alignment differences to take down giants. So that is another way you could tie that into a campaign. So let's kind of phase over to advice for anybody watching, for any DMs out there who maybe are watching because they have interest in dragons. What's some ideas you guys can come up with that maybe they could use to implement dragons into their campaign in a way with more flavor, maybe a new way to come at it that's not cliche, that's not a trope?
I love getting people involved in the politics of dragons.
Okay.
Because they are very smart and they are beasts, but they have this kind of like what Matt was saying about if a chromatic dragon finds a metallic orb, they're so obligated to destroy that person because they have kind of a respect. And so like you can have two dragons that hate each other, but they're going to try to play like a very political game. And getting players caught in the middle of that is something because one dragon is cool, but two dragons that you have to kind of solve something between is very fun. And they have just such big personalities. I get really annoyed when people just throw dragons in for the sake of it being a dragon, and they just, oh, it's a dragon, rah, and then they kill it, and that's all you learn about that dragon. Because dragons do have such large personalities that are so much fun to get into.
What exactly sound does the dragon make again, Kayla? There it is. Got it.
I would be scared of that dragon.
So scared.
Okay, you know what?
Like a little pea.
No, I'd be scared of that dragon right there. No, I have to agree with Kayla, though. If you're gonna use a dragon, don't just throw it at the party like any other monster. These are intelligent creatures. They're going to play the long game. Even a young dragon has this lifespan of perspective that they are coming from, so they're gonna play a long game. So use that intelligence. Use it to your advantage for tricking your party, coming up with new and unique puzzles for them to try to figure out to even get to the dragon. They're not going to just sit there on their pile of gold and wait for you to sneak in, aka smug. But that's neither here nor there.
He was sleeping.
It was a great story, but all he did was sit there and wait for someone to invade his lair. And while that is a fun trope, if you want to use them in a unique way, use their brain, not their brawn.
So you brought up layers. I still want to come back to the DM advice stuff, but layers. So what do you guys think from a mechanical perspective for layers with dragons? So fighting a layer out, or a dragon outside of a layer versus fighting one in a layer.
I mean, it definitely makes things more interesting in the lair. And as far as like, say, I mean, just strictly mechanically speaking, if your party is getting at a level that may be a little too high for the dragon, like you need to bump it up from like adults to ancient or something of that nature, putting it in a lair and actually just making some things that are outside of the book in case you have a few very avid readers among your players can make things much more fun. And I feel keeping it along the lines of their particular element, whether it be cold, acid, fire, it's always fun, but also just like maybe going the extra step, like electricity, trying to think of like ways to incorporate water so everyone has to make the save every single time and has disadvantage. Or for acid, making it, I don't know, putting a chemical in there that creates a toxic cloud every time the acid even touches this chemical. Just like, I don't know, make things more surprising.
Okay.
I think, from an adventurer's standpoint, encountering a dragon within its lair is a fool's errand. You are giving them every advantage in that combat. Finding clever ways to draw them out, however, is definitely preferred. But if you have to fight a dragon in its lair, make sure you go in prepared.
So maybe that would be a good DM advice thing, would be to, if you're going to have your players coming into a dragon encounter that's in a lair, afford opportunity and choice for your players to at least try to lure them out.
And provide them opportunity to discover things about their lair. Maybe talk to a previous adventuring party that had to run away. Or use divination to try to spy on it, though any good dragon of sufficient age would prevent that. But things like that, where you're able to glean information from the environment around the dragon, figure out what you're running into.
How do dragons feel about their lairs?
Mine.
Okay.
I mean, it's their home. It's where they keep all their good shit. It's their home. Like, if you step into their home, you are asking to be killed.
I think it depends a lot on the dragon, at least for me. For me, like, every dragon type has its own strong personality. A gold dragon may revere its lair as a sanctuary, where it is like it's a place of its peace. It finds its rest there. Yes, it has its hoard there, but it's not like that. It's not about the hoard. It's about the peace that it receives by being there. Whereas a red dragon is more about, this is my pile of gold and I will defend it to the death. I want to make it grow. I'm going to use my entire environment to protect it. Where they focus more on the on the possessions and what they have, more so than the feeling that they get from being there.
Okay, so dragons are extremely magical, innately. Do you think that tying in exaggerated magical properties to the lair is a thing that should be looked at or should be avoided?
I think it's cool as shit.
Because I think a lot of times the lair is just a cave with a big pile of gold that the dragon is sleeping on.
I love you know, like, in all honesty, depending on how much research your adventurers get into this particular incident of, you know, like Matt was saying, you know, do some recon and talk to other adventurers that have been there and yada yada whatever, but like gaining that experience of, if let's say they go into 2 dragon lairs, right? And the first one, you know, it's that typical, it's stone walls, you go in, there's torches on the wall and there's a dragon sleeping at the end. Okay, cool. But then like the second one you go to, it's oddly different because now like the walls seem like they're like bleeding this like acid, like what is that, like there's pools of acid on the ground and there's like a smell in the air. Like it even kind of gives you a little bit of an idea of like how long this fucking thing has been there for, because it's literally altering the environment around it. Like I think that's such a cool thing, and I'm sure there's other monsters that might do something very similar, but off the top of my head I can't really think any off the top of the dome piece. But like, okay, that's fun. Like, it's off the top of the dome, just saying, like, that's the only one I can think of that's like they definitely alter things around them. I think that's a really cool thematic thing. Again, that it's like, that's how powerful, like, if you don't correlate those two things, like, that's how powerful this being is, that it manipulates reality around it and physics. What? What is happening?
So
Why are we
like
going in here?
like a symbiosis between the layer and the dragon.
The
Where-
chat is bringing up.
Yeah, go ahead.
The chat is bringing up layer actions, and I
Mhm.
believe that's exactly what Kyle's talking about. By the dragon's very presence,
Mhm.
it is changing the environment to allow for it to have those layer actions. Like
Mhm.
a red dragon being in a mountain cave is going to naturally draw in volcanic activity
Mm.
just by the nature of their very presence. But tying into what you were asking about magical defenses, because they are innately magical, they do have the ability to do wards and spells and traps and all of these other things that would make the lair itself more defensible before you even get to the main horde, before you get to that main chamber where this dragon makes its lair. And I feel like that turns a dragon's cave, the attacking and assaulting the dragon's keep, is a dungeon in and of itself, because you have the traps, you have the puzzles, you have the minions, you have all of these things that a dragon, an intelligent dragon, would keep around it to make its lair safe.
Okay.
And then you get to the dragon battle where it blows you up with volcanic activity.
Okay.
There's something else I wanted to say. In regards to before we were talking about layer stuff, it was like right in kind of the middle of that.
Magical effects on the environment.
If I think of it, I'll come back to it. It was something right before we were talking about layer stuff.
Was it a DM advice for dragon applications?
Yes. Shit. What was it? I'll think of it. Yes, but that's what it is. Okay, continue. I will come back to that. Hold on. I will continue. I will come back. I have to think about what it was. It was pretty good.
So, something that all dragons have in common, it's a shared thing between the chromatic and the metallic, is the love of gold. So, how do you guys feel about the greed side, and why are they drawn to gold? Why is that something that is, and what are some ways to tap into it? Because dragons don't go and spend gold, they just amass it. Why is that, and what are some ways to draw attention to it in a unique way into a campaign?
I have a couple of theories
Okay.
that I've used in the past. One, gold is naturally a soft metal, making it a perfect bed for a very heavy, very scaly creature, because it conforms to their scales, it creates a bit of a coating to them, and it kind of smushes when they lay on it. So it would probably, like, for a dragon of that size, it would be like a memory foam bed.
One could argue that moss or bark or it would be more comfortable though. So why wouldn't they amass something softer than a soft metal?
Because metal
Because
doesn't die like moss would or bark would.
hang on, but also the fact that moss and bark and those materials are soft to us, but we're not nearly the size of a dragon. A dirt mound could work, but it would sift away. Whereas gold, you also have the intrinsic magical value, because a lot of various spells use gold dust, or you've got the alchemical properties of gold,
Okay.
which it's used in a lot of alchemy. So to them, it's like gold has a natural magical essence to it.
Okay.
So now you have a magical memory foam bed.
Okay.
So that was a couple of my theories tied into one.
Okay.
I think another part of it is just because, like, even though they don't spend it, they recognize that humanoids recognize somebody who has a bunch of gold as someone who is powerful. And so it's another ego play. They say, I mean, I may be a beast, but look at all of this stuff that I have that you don't. And it's just another thing for them to brag about. And it's the shiniest thing for them to brag about. So, of course, they love it.
Right. Well, yeah, I mean, too, if just kind of playing that same card, just taking it to the humanoid aspect of it, I mean, if for an example's sake, if a dragon, if a dragon, kills a bunch of villages or stuff, like, how does he even get all the gold up there in the first place, right? Someone brought it there. I mean, maybe he did, sure, but for the most part, it's people or humans or creatures that are under its sway. So another aspect is like the shiny aspect, where it's just this is what people are offering it, so they don't get eaten and die. Like, I don't think a dragon takes 5,000 gold to go buy a magic mace or some shit. They don't really need it, right? I mean, it's kind of the power play, like what Kayla was saying too, but it's also like what people have to offer it.
Yeah,
I mean,
go ahead.
I was just thinking, like, just off the top of the rip here, just to throw Critical Role in here real quick. I mean, Thordak, people are bringing in offerings all the time. It has a whole bunch of shit that people are just constantly bringing it up. Just don't kill us, please. Please don't. Like, and even if a dragon has a horde and there's no real servants or anything, I mean, at least in the very beginning, it's not like it's going to go spend it at the local market or anything, but it's definitely another power play source of, you will offer this to me or you will die. I mean, that's a pretty simple decision to make real quick. And over time, there's no more people, but there's still a dragon sleeping on some gold, But I remember what my question was, or my thought process was. I wrote it down so I wouldn't forget it again.
Yeah.
Okay. So, just a thought. And this could go either way, which is kind of interesting. But, like, so dragons and their layers, and let's just play the evil side of it. So, like a gold dragon, we won't talk about the good ones. Let's just talk about like a red one in its lair, and we're gonna go fight the dragon, guys. Let's go do it, right? And we go in, and again, talking about like how the dragon's been there so long, it affects its area. So this has been here for a while. This is its home. This is its place. This is where its shit is. Towards the end, we're fighting it and everything's happening. If the dragon realizes that this isn't going so well, as a DM or as a player seeing the dragon, like, take both sides of the coin, I guess, but maybe the GM side of it first. Like, would a dragon run away? Or would it have too much of an ego to be like, no, I'm gonna try to kill these things before they kill me because this is my shit now? Would they have enough of a? Would intelligence outplay it and say I'll run away to fight another day and make another lair? Or do they have too much of an ego just to fight until the very end because how dare these peasants come in here? I'm about to die. So that was my thought, because we were talking about layers and things like that, and dragons having that ego and that intelligence. That there's a lot going on in there.
So one thing that I haven't had a chance to bring up yet is in psychology, one of the pretty mainstream concept is that of the reptile brain. And that is basically what's in charge of the flight or flight mechanism in humans. And so it just kind of fits in well with dragons being reptiles and all. So in your scenario, like the evil dragon, from my aspect, I would think the fight or flight would be definitely a thing they'd think about. But again, because these things live for hundreds and hundreds, if not over 1,000 years, like, they're going to be around long before this army of, even if it's just humans, they're going to die in about 20 years. So yeah, they know exactly where their stuff is, and if not, they will get it back in due time. But only if they think they're going to lose the fight. If they think they win the fight, then they'll just like knock those things down like bowling pins.
I think it depends on the dragon.
Exactly
Go
what
ahead.
I was going to say.
Hey,
That was
high
exactly
five.
what I was going to say. Yeah.
Hey, we did it.
Yeah, it depends on the dragon.
Um,
Which is why it's so important to know your dragons before a player encounters
You
them.
hear that, guys? Know your dragons.
I will stop interrupting Matt. Now you go.
I was just going to add to that, as an example, a red dragon being the apex of chromatics, at least in its mind, is going to stay and fight to the very end because its pride is on the line. And you could have a red dragon who has a completely different personality than that. But when I think red dragon, I think combative ego. White dragons are the same thing because they're the most primal of the dragons. A white dragon is going to stay and fight to the bitter end. It's not going to run away because it gets stuck in that kill mode. Whereas a green dragon, who is naturally clever and uses its wits more than its brawn to fight, is going to be very elusive. So if it gets into a dire situation where it knows it doesn't have the advantage, or it knows that it's going to lose, it's going to try to slip away long enough to get the advantage again, or just come back at a later time and get its revenge from miles away. So that to me is the biggest difference there, is that yes, both aspects are true. A dragon will either stay and fight, or it might flee to create a new lair, but it depends a lot on the personality of the dragon.
Okay.
Fair enough.
So I guess the kind of piggyback off of that, since we were just talking about layers and DMing, was, you know, maybe just like a DM advice for myself included, let alone anyone else who plans to use one, is, you know your dragons, know your dragon guy. But like, know
your dragons.
Like, know your dragons. It's almost like when you're playing your character, just like know your character, know what it would do. So, just make sure that, run it through your head a little bit. Like, if this happens, like, what does your dragon do in that scenario? So it stays true to the game, I guess. It wouldn't necessarily be out of character for it to run away or stay or whatever you decide to do with it. That's kind of where I was going with that. But yeah, that was good. I like that. Those little perspective things.
One more point on layers that was brought up in chat, and I thoroughly agree, is that different dragons are going to have favorite treasure. Like, they all love gold.
I saw that, yeah.
It's part of the horde. It's somewhere in the mix. But some dragons may prefer art objects, where they like statues. Maybe they have a particular fancy for dragon statues because they think it's honoring them, or maybe they just like, ceramic kittens. I don't know. But different dragons like different things. You might have a dragon who loves gems. Exactly. Little crystal unicorns.
Who doesn't? Just
You might have a dragon who is fascinated with magic, so they collect magic items, or they collect tomes of magic. You could have one that loves gems, or loves various things that represent wealth, but don't necessarily have a currency value.
I think it stems from the tapping into the superficial, materialistic personification that we can have, and super exaggerating it to where there's... So this hyper-intelligent, magical, massive, powerful beast probably doesn't have friends and is lonely. We all crave companionship, and we all just want to be loved. So, who's going to befriend a dragon? So I think the seeking out comfort in something and, putting it into a materialistic thing is just a way for... Is it maybe a cry for help? Is it for what do you guys think about that?
Or even just something to do. Like, we've talked about their lifespans. Like, what the hell is a dragon gonna do if it, like, in from my point of view, like, if it's not interested in humans, how the hell does it occupy its hundreds and hundreds of years of life? Aside from just finding food, okay, hibernating, maybe.
Do you think it's a contradiction to the fact of how intelligent they are? Why would they bother doing something so trivial that's not going to do anything? Is that counterintuitive?
Intelligence does not necessarily mean no emotions. Like, they don't... It's not that they don't feel that hole, that social hole that's there. But it's definitely something that they are replacing with wealth, kind of like a Hollywood actor has no real friends that they could trust, but they have a lot of money, so they just go out and buy a bunch of sports cars. So bottom line, brass dragons drive sports cars.
Hashtag hug a dragon.
Hashtag hug a dragon. That's amazing. I love it. Get a t-shirt. They have no friends. It's like the saddest thing we've talked about so far.
They're just misunderstood.
Yeah. Know your dragons. Know your dragons. Could you imagine? That'd be like the greatest thing. It's like this epic quest to go fight this dragon who's fucking everything up, and he's like, it'd have to be the bard, right? He'd just be like, do you need a hug? Like, is that all it is? And it's like campaign over. That's all he wanted, was just someone to like hang out with, like play video games with and shit.
I just want somebody to love me.
Never got invited to a birthday party as a wormling.
Right. Just 250 years of just like pictures of him blowing out candles by himself.
And he keeps on lighting him up with his breath, and so it just keeps on going and going.
Yeah, he goes.
Yeah.
just constantly.
And then one year he finally gets the fire not to work, but somebody pranked him with the ever lighting candles.
He has to prank himself because he has no like that's.
Ow! Oh, that cuts deep.
No wonder he's burning villages and stuff. He's just looking for someone to hang out with. Poor thing. I'm hugging a dragon the next. I don't care where it comes. Next dragon I see, I don't give a shit what campaign.
All right, I'll have to plan for that.
I'm hugging one. Know it's coming.
Hashtag hug a dragon.
Hashtag hug a dragon. I fucking love it.
So if we kind of dive into the aspect Connor's brought up a couple times about the longevity of dragons and looking at mortals with our lifespan or slightly longer if you look at a couple other races, but still comparatively to dragon, that's nothing. Do you think that comes into play of why they are elitist? And
I would say yeah.
Would maybe it be something that they're jealous of? So somebody who is short-lived can be more passionate about something, and things can objectively maybe have more meaning because they have something to lose. You know, like if you live a long ass time, there are downsides to it of can you be passionate about something? Because usually passion's like a burst of something, you know, in a moment, but when you live a long time, that would make it even smaller to where it's trivial.
I think from a dragon's perspective, they are very passionate. But from a human perspective, they are not. Because while they are very passionate about something like collecting their favorite trinkets, those kind of things, they take their time to do it. They can afford to wait the 10, 20, 200 years for them to get that one trinket that really sets off their horde or like makes them feel complete. So I don't think that they are incapable of that or feel jealous of the other races for that, because they experience it at a different level. They experience it over the long term instead of this short burst. So it's kind of like, actually, I don't have a good reference for it because I don't have that frame of reference. When you can spend 200 years creating a masterpiece, you're going to do that instead of spend 200 hours creating something that you think would be close, if that makes sense.
Connor, from a psychological standpoint, what do you think dragons could ever view as some, like, what character that humans could possess that would ever make a dragon like jealous?
I mean, I liked what Matt just brought up, or maybe it's Kayla, about how like just different levels of like this is passion for a dragon versus passion for a human. They don't weigh up and measure equally. I mean, I suppose again, like I come from a very almost bestial version of a dragon mentality, but if a human could do something that a dragon couldn't do, that was sort of on a grand scale, like perform a miracle or create a very large and impressive work of art, or like, I don't know, say the Great Wall of China, that sort of thing, that I think would make a dragon jealous and possibly want to destroy it in a bit of rage. But I don't know, because the idea of jealousy, because it goes against, it's difficult with the ego. Like it kind of goes with the ego, but also goes against the ego. I don't know. I got a lot of stuff spinning in my head. I'm not sure how to answer that.
Okay, that's fair. Because
a
lot of it's
no, go ahead, Kayla. You're good.
I think a lot of it again depends on the dragon, because jealousy, like even from a human standpoint, is a very personal thing. Like it's very rare. Like you'll have a generic kind of, oh, I'm jealous of their wealth, but
can you put your mic a little bit closer so you're louder? There
Can
you
you guys hear me better now?
Yeah.
Can you hear me now,
Can
Sean?
you hear me now?
Now you're dragons.
Oh my god. Okay, so the anyway.
No, go ahead. Keep going.
No, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, so I think it's a very like personally different thing because jealousy is a very personal for anyone who feels it. And so like two dragons may have the same item of affection, but it's because one dragon had it first and then another dragon found out about it and they were like, oh well, if he wants it and he's got all this cool stuff, then I want it too. I think one thing that dragons tend to like fixate on about like very specific things are like an item unlike any of its kind, because in a dragon's mind they are as rare and as beautiful as that piece. So those are just my thoughts on dragon jealousy.
Hashtag dragon jealousy.
Hashtag dragon jealousy.
I do think that dragons are more likely to be jealous of other dragons than they would of other races.
Okay.
That's one thing that we haven't talked about super much, which is like the relationship with dragons and dragons as opposed to like dragons and humans, because they do have their
Take us there,
whole
Kayla.
I mean, I kind of like mentioned it, like they have their whole own like web of social stuff that they got going on with other dragons. It's a whole thing. It's as much of a thing as any DM wants to make it, or it can be as little of a thing. Like you can be like, oh, dragons don't talk to each other because they're very territorial, which is very true. But the same as like when you have like, countries that have bordering territories, they're gonna have to interact with each other and they're gonna have to set boundaries, and sometimes they're gonna have to be forceful. But eventually they come to kind of like this trust of, okay, this is my land, you stay off of my land, and we won't have any problems. And it's
But they're all friends on the Draconic social media network. Of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just so they can,
all friends on Scalebook there.
Yeah.
just so that they can snipe at each other in their own little social circles.
Yeah.
They're taking selfies over their horde.
Yeah. And I mean, you are gonna have dragons.
Hashtag new horde.
No, you're dragons.
In my opinion, like you're talking about how like dragons don't have friends and stuff like that. I think it is possible for a dragon to have friends with another dragon as long as they don't cross the line, because dragons are the only ones that are gonna understand dragons.
All right, let's get some input in the chat. What's the best name for a dragon social media? So we got Roarer, Fangbook.
Fangbook.
I like Fangbook.
I do too.
So yeah, we're gonna keep talking, but let's hear some of your guys' best ideas.
So one thing I wanted to add to this is for me, and this
My
goes
lair.
back to, yes, instead of
a little
MySpace, my
outdated,
lair.
but it's still there.
I dig it.
It has odd backgrounds and like odd music that they put on. Yeah. Anyway, go ahead, Matt.
I'm going to read a quote out of the Draconomicon that is part of one of the chapters. It says, how can one imagine anything more magnificent than a dragon, the paragon of creation? And that speaks volumes to what a dragon mentality is. To me, dragons are hyper-intelligent cats. Because a cat, if given personality and the ability to speak, would deem itself the apex predator. And everyone else around it is there to serve it. If you really understand cats, you know this, because we clean up after them, we feed them, we bend to their whims when they want attention and when they don't. So
Kayla knows this all too well.
My cat's all over me tonight.
So you have this hyper-intelligent creature that is an apex predator, one of the strongest forces of nature, and they have an ego to match. So they deem themselves above everything. They are the pinnacle of creation. There is no one better except maybe another dragon.
But if you look at an extreme exaggerated hierarchy, if dragons view themselves at the top of the pyramid, there is no pyramid if there's not the ones underneath. If you were... Yeah, Illuminati signs here. Yeah,
what else are minions for?
Exactly. So I think there is a...
hierarchy.
Yeah, like why would... So they obviously need to burn villages to appease their boredom and to also assert their power and, you know, keep that reverence and fear. But the idea of not wiping out everybody because you need people around to be servants and to be afraid of you. Otherwise, if it's just dragons around, then that puts you at the bottom of the pyramid because you're a nobody.
I will say on something that you said, I don't think a good dragon, in like my opinion, I don't think a good like created dragon as a DM would destroy a city out of boredom. Like they always have a reason, even if that reason is just I'm hungry, I need to eat, and humans are my favorite flesh. Like I don't think they're ever just like, wake up, okay, did my stretches, morning exercises, I don't have anything to do today, I'll just go destroy a city. Like I think they always have a reason in mind as to why they do it, because they're tricksy. I like.
They're so tricksy. So talking about dragons eating, so these are massive beasts. If you look at just how much fuel we consume, and we're tiny compared to their size, like what do you think would be a good thing for dragons to eat in a campaign setting? You said, you know, having humans be the desired flesh, but what other creatures out there could be a dietary preference for dragons?
Anything. They're at the top of the food chain. They eat whatever they want.
But it's going to have to be something in super abundance because of how much fuel they'd go through.
Yeah, but it's not because they go through so much, they can't limit it to like one specific thing. Like they're going to eat what they can get their hands on. They may have preferences.
My question is, why wouldn't a dragon of sufficient magical ability just polymorph into a smaller creature and be able to eat whatever it wanted, fill itself up, and then polymorph back? There is no...
My argument to that would be like, unless it was an ancient dragon, that would probably slow its growth pattern, and it does eventually want to become its final form, if you want to look at it that way.
That's fair. I can see that.
On a side note, while we're talking about dragon diets, like, okay, just for a moment here, right? Like, I'm starting to think a little bit as we're having these conversations, like, on some real shit, what the hell do dragons do all day? Because they live to be like...
Know your dragons, Kyle.
Know your dragons. Like, they live to be like, what, 400, 500, 600 years, whatever.
More.
Right?
More.
Yeah.
More than that. Okay.
Several thousand years. The youngest, per the Draconomicon, the youngest is like 2,200 years, and the oldest can live up to 6,000 if they don't enter the twilight.
And like on some real shit, like we're talking about like them like, you know, sleeping on gold piles and like and that's fine, that's all good. We should be, that's fine. But like what I'm thinking to myself here is like and Kayla was like, so they wake up and they do their morning stretches, like do they just lay back down? Like I feel like dragons are kind of lazy now. I'm getting onto a tangent. I feel like they're lazy. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Like we're talking about them making paintings and like finding their passion. Like,
they're just misunderstood, really.
Now,
what do they do?
I'm going to pause you because consider how old a dragon can become. Who's to say that they live in a typical daily cycle? A day to a dragon could be a week to us. So they might sleep for 4, 5, 6 days, like cats. I'm going back to the cats reference because it is very accurate.
What about a tabaxi dragon?
What just happened?
That just takes me to like China with the dragons that sort of have like lion faces and the long whiskers and the mane. That sort of thing.
Let's get
it. And Matt, and you're not wrong in saying that. You know, due to their larger size, like maybe they only have to eat. You know, their 3 meals a day is eating 3 times in a month because a month is a day to them. Like that's fine. That's okay. I get all that stuff. So like, do they just sleep? Just sleep for weeks? Like lazy asses, get up and do something. Make a painting like we're talking about.
Kyle, you don't want a dragon to get up and do something because that's when it starts causing problems.
Exactly.
Whose side are you on, Kyle?
Come on.
Not only that, but if you consider
cultist.
So getting up and doing something, there is no urgency to a dragon. Why should they have to awaken every day and work a 9-to-5 job doing something. Like, Daily Dragon just does not sit with me for some reason.
Daily dragon.
What does a 6,000-year-old dragon eat? Whatever it wants.
Exactly.
In whatever quantity it wants.
I had to bring it up because as we were having this conversation, I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm trying to squeeze more hours in a day just to get shit done, and then these assholes are just laying around for weeks on end, not doing anything.
Gingivitis and dragons. We should talk about that.
Yeah, but I mean, like,
Right.
you got stuff to do because you gotta like earn money.
Irritable bowel
So
syndrome.
you can pay everything, and then nobody's gonna come to a dragon and be like, "Hey, you were supposed to pay your rent yesterday. You didn't do that." Like, everyone's just gonna leave dragons alone.
You got a point. You got a point. Anyway, it was just in my mind. I had to share it.
Yep. Nope. I agree that there is definitely a perspective there for that. I just also looking at it from a dragon's perspective is like, if I had 4,000 years to live, would I bother waking up every day? Nah. Sometimes I would just sleep in. No urgency.
So an idea I just had, stemming back to the DM ideas for implementing dragons. What do you guys think about, say if life originated from dragons, magic originated from dragons, what about a concept of dragons have been enslaved or taken away and need to be freed to bring back magic into the world? Instead of being the baddies who are the mafia behind everything, it'd be where you have to save them. What do you guys think about that?
The dragon damsels in distress.
Right.
That definitely has some good aspects because, one, you wouldn't have magical classes available unless you had a means to explain like magic is fading and
there you
not
go.
necessarily gone. But that would add a lot of interesting aspects too, because maybe everybody's a wild magic sorcerer at that point, where even the slightest magical spell could trigger a mishap. Where magic has become unstable with without the dragon presence.
If the source of life came from dragons and they've been imprisoned or subdued, life itself could be deteriorating.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it'd be the whole, like, also the morality thing. Like, for instance, if you bring back the metallics, then therefore you must bring back the chromats too, which is just the whole, like, well, we bring back the good, but also the evil.
Because life requires balance.
Yeah.
Fear leads to anger.
It's kind of a cool thing too. Just to kind of put things in perspective, if you wanted to maybe put a little bit of framework to a campaign, if you wanted that to be the start, because that is kind of a cool concept. Just trying to get some gears turning in my brain here, where like, if you put in perspective, if someone has the dragons of the world under tow and is in lock and key or imprisonment, like if that doesn't trigger for your adventurers, like level 1 characters, we're not ready to go do that thing yet. It does kind of put some parameters on, like, there is a scaling there that they should understand.
Scales.
If we did that. Thank you for picking up on that stuff. Hey. I think it kind of makes it a real easy bond from the beginning. Like, whatever the character's backstory is that they want to do on their own, but it is a common bond of the world needs dragons, and these people are uniting to go free them. Not right now. Like, it definitely gives you, like, a good little foundation, some walls down there of, this is what we're going to do eventually, and we know we're not ready to do that yet, but it's something to build towards. So it can be a really cool campaign aspect without it being too complicated. It's a very...
The hesitation of saving them because it'll bring more evil into the world. But then there's the dynamic of, if there wasn't evil, can there be good? You have to have two sides of a pole to have one of them be significant.
To touch on something Kyle was bringing up, though, in terms of campaign scaling, you could have it be a gradual process where someone is actively imprisoning the dragons, and the adventurers start off trying to figure out what's going on, progress from trying to figure out what's going on to trying to interfere with what's going on, and then eventually to either stop or reverse the capturing of these dragons or the imprisonment of these dragons, to kind of build that campaign from the ground up and let them be a part of that whole scenario. The other thing you could do, and this is just me, is if you wanted to add a element of quote unquote evil, but evil for the greater good, is possibly a group of powerful mages decided that with the dragons being imprisoned or gone, they resurrect an ancient dragon, or like bring it back as this kind of undead construct that is profane to all dragon kind, but is temporarily sustaining magic in the world.
My idea was that whatever race organization has captured the dragons is able to harvest their magical essence and then pass it along to like those who are loyal to them or among their race, and so they have use of magic. And then depending on our heroes, they can collect these items and this source of magic and use it themselves. And depending on like if it's from a black dragon or a metallic dragon, like it has different effects and also possibly corruption aspects. So you have this power, but do you want to use it?
Lots of good stuff.
Yeah.
Whenever Matt said, like, all the dragons are dead and you resurrect one to bring them back, I was just thinking, like, Jurassic World, but with dragons.
Yes.
Oh, that's cool.
Basically exactly what happens. Except
like,
That's cool. That is cool as shit.
Imagine, like,
Oh, that's amazing.
like a dragon that was like a raptor. Like a, a Veloza dragon. That'd be scary as fuck.
yeah, it would. Just in general, like, raptor's scary. Dragon raptor? Scary.
Oh.
Acid spitting dragon raptor.
Oh my god.
But to put in perspective, aren't raptors technically like the fossils we have, like the size of chickens?
Yes. Well, there is the classic Velociraptor, which we're going way off subject here, but I was a dino nerd, so I'm gonna go on to it. You have the classic Velociraptor, which was basically a feathered chicken. They actually have established that they had feathers. Then you had the Utah Raptor, which was portrayed in Jurassic Park as a Velociraptor. And that is the one that has the big claw and that was rather large. It still wasn't as large as they portrayed it, but yeah.
But if we're talking about a fantasy world with magic and dragons, saying, you know, this lizard was a little bigger, that's not that crazy.
No.
No.
Hey, I had a little sidebar while we're talking about some random shit of, you know, kind of even just going down this trail of like dino dragons and things. It's like you're kind of getting into like the homebrew world of things that you could try to do. Well, something that I actually wrote down would be kind of a fun thing to just talk about if you wanted to. Like, you know, we've been talking about like metallics and chromatics and that, but like, has anyone ever had in a game that they played in or DM for, or at least heard of another DM using, or some whatever, of like homebrew dragons? Like I wrote down like wood dragons or forest dragons, rock dragons, or like crystal dragons, or I don't know, some crazy dragon shit, like anything like that.
So Dragonomicon actually has quite a few of those.
His face
examples.
is frozen like this.
I didn't read that far yet,
No,
Matthew.
I'm just letting you know. If you are looking for a way to structure one and include it in a homebrew campaign, that is a good resource. However, I have personally used a mountain dragon. It was a literal mountain that was it was this ancient dragon who had become so, like, he had fallen asleep for millennia, and his body had become one with the land, and he became a mountain. There was a dungeon that they adventurers could explore within his back. At one point, they find his heart, and when they interacted with it, it awakened the dragon. And now they're in this rumbling, collapsing, shuddering dungeon as this thing rises up from the earth. And it ended up being a very interesting campaign as they tried to figure out how do you stop something that is the size of a mountain.
We just had user 5354 talking about turtle dragons.
Yeah, that's what I was going to bring up.
Yeah.
Dragon turtles specifically. There is a dragon turtle, and it is classified as a dragon.
Right. Yeah, the one that's like underwater and like I think a couple people have used them as like an island. The shells like an island. Yeah.
Or guardians of some kind. Yeah.
Is it sad? Is it sad though when Matthew said about how do you stop a mountain dragon? I was just like, you like put a highway through it. Like, isn't that how you kill them anymore? Is that sad? That's like where my mind went with that.
Sad.
You're not wrong.
Are you liberal, Kyle?
Put a mini mole. Put a mini mole on it or some shit, or like a strip mall.
I was waiting for the hug.
Where my met with you.
Pave paradise and put it in a parking lot.
He just wanted a hug a dragon.
Okay,
Hug a dragon.
I like how Bacon put in there like homebrew dragons, like a dragon. What does that look like?
A dragon
I don't know
dragon?
what a dragon looks like.
It's a dragon who's not motivated to do anything.
No, it is a dragon with only front legs.
A dragon.
Yeah, it's a dragon with only front legs.
Because he's dragon.
Pop quiz. What dragon colors do not have wings?
Copper. I think all the...
Let's throw that into the chat. Let's see. Anyone who is watching, let's list up any dragons that you know that do not have wings in D&D.
And I have a question for you guys. So early on, I talked about how the only poison type of dragon is green, but there are two metallic dragons that breathe fire, both the gold and I want to say the brass. Do you guys think Wizard did that for a reason, or because poison has like negative connotations, or maybe just a typo and someone effed up?
I think it was an oversight.
Yeah.
I think it was one of those Venomoth Beedrill swaps that went undetected and then got published, and then they just had to go with it.
I mean, the monster manual, I think it's the copper. They have like a sleep breath, which could kind of be classified as poisonous a little bit. A little bit.
Honestly, like, I'm going to be cynical on this one. I don't think it was done from a design standpoint. I think it was done from a mechanic standpoint, because so many things have resistance to poison or immunity to poison that limiting the number of creatures that use poison may have been a mechanical choice.
Yeah. Just curious, because poison, like, it's kind of, it doesn't have good connotations with it.
No.
Which also was part of my thinking of maybe why a good dragon doesn't have that as its sort of breath weapon. But then fire and dragons just sort of go hand in hand, so why not have the spare pick it up?
Life can come from fire.
Yes, it can.
But could it ever come from poisonous, venomous, acidicness?
Well, yeah, bacteria, fungi, they grow from decay.
Let's talk micro.
Are you a micro girl, Kayla?
I am a micro girl.
What?
Oh my gosh!
Anyway, that's
I
a
missed
whole
that.
other
A
thing.
what? What is that?
A micro girl.
Into microbiology.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah.
Love the little buggers.
Been trying to. I've been
Kill them.
puzzling this pop
Kill them.
quiz. This pop quiz is bugging me.
Who has the wings?
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure all the chromats have wings.
I'm pretty sure all of them have wings.
No, not all chromatics.
No, if it's not, it's the blue that doesn't have them.
Okay.
I could have sworn blue had wings.
I thought they did too.
All right, DMs, bust out your monster
I want
manuals.
to say black. Black doesn't have wings. That's what I'm gonna go with. That's my final.
Why's it gotta be the black ones, Kyle?
Blue has wings. Black has wings.
Because no one else was saying it, so I did.
Let's see here.
I thought one of the
Black
aquatic
Dragon Lives
ones-
Matter.
I thought one of the aquatic ones don't
Black
have.
dragons better.
Now, okay, so wait, are we limiting this to true dragons, or are we talking all dragon types?
Let's do true dragons.
True dragons. Okay, so the
Oh.
chromatics and the metallics.
Yes.
No, gold. They can fly. They don't have wings in the picture, but
Gold definitely do have wings. They're large frills that they use as like fans. They're not the traditional like fingered wings. but they fly very similar to the way the lung dragons in Chinese mythology.
Yeah. Leonardo da Vinci would not approve.
So it's metallic and chromatic. It's which
Correct.
ones don't. So
Right.
all the chromatics do fly. Is that what we're saying?
No.
Or there's one that doesn't?
Red flies. I'm looking at it.
To the
gonna
monster
say
manual, they
flies.
don't have wings.
Testing you guys.
I'm
Green
saying black.
has them.
Blue flies.
If you're going by official
Black flies.
5e, all the chromatic dragons have wings and they fly.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the book.
100%? Okay. I may have been wrong then. I thought they're...
Which
Well,
one were you thinking didn't?
To be fair, I do believe that the way you can, by definition, a dragon has to have 4 legs to be and wings to be a true dragon. Otherwise, you get into the wyverns, which has only hind legs and wings. You have the guard drakes, which have no wings.
I read
they're
that
all-
in the Dragon Dormagomicon today. I did.
Yeah.
I read that in the beginning. It
That's
had
why I was.
it talked about their 4 legs that are underneath of them instead of on their sides, and they have wings and they have teeth and things that are full of stuff instead of other things. Yeah, I read all that stuff, Matt.
Yes, I know. That's why I'm like,
God.
this is confusing to me. If there is a dragon that does not have wings, a true dragon that does not have wings, I am not aware of it, and I am happy to learn.
Or the dragon turtle.
I could have been wrong, but I'm pretty sure there was one.
I mean, the
You
blue
know-
likes to burrow, which is, I think it would prefer over flying.
Y'all, blue dragons are rarely used and they're amazing. I love
Spaz.
them.
We need Spaz.
So while we're researching,
Got a while ago.
no one really answered my question. I mean, Matt
What
kind
was
of
it?
said that there was more in the Dragon Damagamigon, but has anyone seen like a
Oh.
straight up homebrewed dragon before?
Besides the one I used, no.
Not that I've
Besides
not
the
that I've
mountain.
used in game.
That's the only one who answered me.
So
No.
I don't know, Matt, are there purple dragons? Is that one of the ones that comes up? In
Not unless you're counting like the fairy dragons, which I believe
Okay.
some of them.
Well, I've used a purple dragon.
Go on.
So
Oh.
my purple dragon was a type of dragon that was feared and hated by both chromatic and metallic dragons, and so they actually teamed up to destroy them completely. There were very few survivors, and those that did went underground and now control the Underdark. And my players encountered one, and they do not have wings, partially because those that did have wings, their wings were destroyed. But the wings that they have, or what little wings they have left, aren't really like wings. Like they use them to glide from like stalactite to stalactite, or whatever the ones that hang from the ceiling are.
Yeah.
And
the
they're
one I was
very like
thinking that-
nimble and thin.
The one I was thinking of that didn't have wings is because it dug.
Yeah, that's the blue. I did actually remember for this one campaign where we were just like this super high level. I got introduced to a void dragon.
Ooh.
Never heard of that before until I had to face it.
You defaced
Uh,
him?
Huh?
You defaced him?
No, until I had to face him.
Just kidding.
And I think we were all like, we started at level 15, and we were fighting up a juiced up vampire lord who was riding a void dragon. It was rough. We did not survive.
That's incredible, though.
Is it Void Dragon from World of Warcraft? I could be wrong.
Possibly. The DM who was running it was very much a homebrew, tie-in, kind of whatever he wanted.
I counted a void dragon once, but the encounter went pretty bad, so we voided it. Thanks, Fireside.
The kind of going back, touching on what Connor had said about the whole like poison dragon thing, I had started to make a like poison dragon metallic counterpart, but the players never encountered it. But basically, the green dragons destroyed them because they were like, "No, we want to be the only poisonous ones," and they were smart enough to get rid of them. So away they went.
All right, we are at the mark for our second break, so we will be back in 5 minutes. Thanks everyone for sticking around, and we will see you shortly.
Sweet.
Talk more about dragons.
Blah!
All right, welcome back, everybody, to I almost said Horseman of the Apocalypse, to Red Dragon Inn, our D&D talk show, and our topic for tonight is dragons. Huge topic. We could literally go on for 8 hours. So we might be doing another Red Dragon Inn in the future about said topic, but we're going to try to progress through our itinerary a little bit, and we're going to go on to half dragons. So they are different than Dragonborn, and Dragonborn we're going to touch on when we do the playable races segments. But Matt, can you give us a brief difference between Dragonborn and half dragons, and then go off on half dragons? Okay. So, what are Dragonborn then? There's two, yeah, two stories, yeah. Right. Can't hear who.
You can hear music. You can hear music and Sean.
Yeah, I clicked the wrong button. Are we good now? The music should be off and all of us should be coming through.
You can hear music and Sean. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm hearing the feedback loop. It looks like it's good.
Okay. Sorry about that, guys. Oh, my bad. Yeah, we appreciate you guys saying stuff in the chat whenever something's wrong, because we don't always hear everything that's coming through live. So, yeah, let us know when stuff is getting messed up. So they probably missed that whole bit, I think.
Yes, they did.
All right, so Dragonborn versus Half Dragon. In the summarized nutshell, what's the differences?
Half Dragon is a hybrid between dragon and something else, and Dragonborn are a race in and of themselves, either created by dragons to be servants or evolved in like as a split from dragons.
Okay. So we got some new viewers in here. So if anybody's curious what this is a D&D talk show called Red Dragon Inn. It is our Wednesday program. On Tuesdays we are having a campaign that's going to be going through 5th edition, and we're looking at adding some other things to our channel. We're going to have a PvP tournament. We're going to have what else are we adding? We're trying to get some other campaigns, some other DMs in on this. You can check out our website, HotARPG.com, and there is a list of applications we're taking for different campaigns and different programs. But we are talking about dragons, and right now we're on the topic of half dragons. So what do you guys know about half dragons, or want to talk about, or what are some questions you guys have?
One of the only things I really know off the cuff.
Oh, Bacon's back. Hi, Bacon.
Hey, buddy. I know what the cuff is that like half dragons definitely have a lot more features of dragons.
Yes.
Such things like their claw, like their tails. I know is a big one. If I'm not mistaken, some half dragons might be able to get wings. I don't know, kind of. I think so. I know Dragonborn definitely don't have the tails. I know that's a big one, but I mean, like, physical stuff is, and like I think they're taller, right? I think they're a little taller. The half dragons versus Dragonborn. So, I know that off the cuff. Again, not knowing too much more than that, but just off the rip.
Hold on. We are kind of lagging out, so I'm going to stop the stream and restart it. We'll be right back with you guys. Sorry about that.
No.
All right.
No.
We are back on. I think that cut down on the lag. Listen on the chat. Can you guys, can everybody hear, see everything okay?
Check.
Yep. Okay, perfect. Sorry about that, guys. All right, so half dragons.
I think the world's trying to tell us to move on from this topic.
Yeah, I honestly don't know anything about them.
Okay.
My 5e stuff, a lot of it stems from just like Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, Dungeon Master's Guide. I've gotten into some of the new books a little bit, but then aside from that, the things I watch are like Big Ol' Critter here, so love Critical Role, Acquisitions Inc., and High Rollers, and none of them have really touched on half dragons. So I'm all ears and not so much mouth for this particular topic.
Okay.
Most of my knowledge stems from previous editions where the half-dragon template could be applied to various races so that you could get all the features of your core race with the features of the dragon. I have not seen them in 5th edition. I thought they were completely replaced with Dragonborn.
Well, they have an NPC half dragon in the Tyranny of Dragons module.
Okay. I have not seen that one yet. I'll have to go look that up.
Yeah, I'm a little rusty on the half dragon stuff as well. I was hoping you guys could cover down on me, but looks like we're going to have to move that into the segment when we do the Dragonborn. Unless you got something.
We do have a half dragon in the Monster's Manual. I can read it.
Please do. That would be...
Do half dragons have the breath weapon that Dragonborn have?
They have damage resistance.
The breath weapon.
I just know the physical stuff. The tail,
they do. This one does. So on page 180 of the Monster Manual, they have a half-red dragon veteran. They do have a breath weapon, fire, and they do have a type of resistance according to their coloration. So half-dragon. When a dragon in polymorphed form mates with another creature, the union sometimes produces a half-dragon offspring. A creature might also transform into a half-dragon as the result of a mad wizard spell or a ritual bath in dragon's blood. In all these cases, the result is a creature that combines the essence of a dragon with the form of its original race. Regardless of its origin, all half-dragons have similar appearances and similar abilities. They also have a draconic nature. Half-dragons can't procreate. Those that wish to do so must almost always resort to magic. By way of compensation, half-dragons are blessed with long life. The typical half-dragon's lifespan is twice that of its non-draconic line, so that a half-dragon human might live more than a century and a half. Half-dragons inherit the personality traits common to their draconic heritage. For example, half-gold dragons are often shy and secretive, while half-copper dragons are impish and playful. Half-green dragons are deceitful, while half-white dragons are often dim-witted brutes. These traits are tempered by the half-dragon's other lineage, but greed, arrogance, and paranoia are qualities that even good-aligned half-dragons often possess. I shouldn't have closed the book, in case you wanted more questions.
Cool.
Beautiful.
And it actually does continue the entry with a half-dragon template for creating a monster with that is a half-dragon. But there isn't anything that allows for a player to become a half-dragon per rules that's written.
So is it almost kind of like, all right, just to kind of throw out like just a thought, metaphor, mentality, analogy, simile, hyperbole. Which
is it?
Is it almost kind of like? Is it almost kind of like a half dragon? If it's almost like just use your mental here, like it's like the thing, like the half orc or a human or whatever it is. And it's almost like this dragon cloak is placed on it, and it molds into it, and then it becomes this thing. Like Dragonborn to me is more like a legit being, race, mating, things, colony towns, right? And the half dragon, it sounds like it's more of a made thing than anything. It's like a. That makes sense.
It's a creation. It is a hybrid, very true to what hybrids are in nature. You have mules, which a hybrid between a donkey and a horse.
Yep.
They can't mate. They can't breed. They're sterile by default. So through similar lines, because you have the drastic difference between a dragon and a humanoid, their offspring are sterile.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is getting way into the biology of things.
like
I'm
ligers.
probably very wrong. I am not a scientist by any means, but I passed high school biology.
Yeah. No, so far everything you said is
Okay.
on point. You're good.
From the mad scientist.
Yeah. No, but Kyle, I swear, whenever you were saying basically a half dragon is, I thought you were gonna say a half dragon is something half, and then the other half a dragon.
That's all I know. Like, if I'm getting anything,
That's what I legit thought that's what you were gonna say, and I was gonna lose it.
Yeah, I think
so sorry to disappoint. I actually had an extra like little intelligence bubble.
I was impressed.
Shit,
Very
right?
impressed.
It's like this half thing. I swear.
It's like it's a half dragon.
If I may pose a question to keep us on the half dragon subject,
Sure.
how would you use a half dragon in a campaign? What would they represent in your world?
Maybe an ambassador role between a draconic side and campaign side.
Opposing race, yeah. I could see that.
Half dragons are the ones who are like the Imperial guards, the prisoners who the guards who are keeping the dragons prison. Boom. That's what I would do.
Boom.
That'd be some cool shit. They're not the head honchos, but they're the stormtroopers as half dragons. There's definitely someone up above having that being how the hell dragons are captive in the first place.
So maybe they're... Go ahead. Sorry. Finish.
No, go ahead. Yeah. Continue.
So maybe they're created as a hybrid by the dragon themselves, not necessarily through mating with another race, but literally given a blessing of a dragon to turn them into a half dragon to become their guards.
I would imagine
either their guards or like taking a Star Wars approach to it, like they're made like stormtroopers to be like, you know, the army basically.
Yeah.
And if there were mages, okay, so to take all to going back to that idea Sean had before about like if there was a world where all dragons are captive, right? Like that's definitely some high level shit going on to even have that be possible. I mean, it definitely seems feasible where those kind of people would definitely formulate some sort of badass stormtrooper kind of thing that are, you know, 7 to 8 feet tall half dragons that are, and I mean, that's kind of cool in itself that they're the ones that are like, you know, prodding dragons with like these spears of lightning on it and shit, like get back in there and like that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would see it if we did the whole mage controlling dragon things that they would use the blood aspect, which was mentioned in the book, that you can bathe humanoid in blood and they become a half dragon after a certain amount of time with certain rituals and all that stuff. And then they sort of become a temporary balance thing as the dragons are dying out. And because they're sterile, you don't have to worry about them. You can tag them, you can keep track of them, and you don't have to worry about them breeding or anything like that. And so,
A control measure.
Tying back to the Jurassic Park reference, life finds a way.
or it goes extinct.
Yes.
Yeah.
But
unless it doesn't.
All right.
Okay.
No, do you have one other thing? I was gonna.
Just like personally, I'm a big fan to like play with the whole idea of what are people willing to do to gain power. And I think that becoming a half dragon is something that people would definitely want to do. And if it's something that was forced upon them, like maybe a parent wanted power, but they couldn't get it themselves, so they forced it upon their child by making their child be a half dragon. You know, it depends. Once again, like in my mind, like there's very rarely any this always fits with this personality. Like I think that it's going to depend on the individual. If it's something that they themselves are seeking, they're going to be proud of the fact that they're half dragon. But if it's something that was forced on them that they don't want, they've been an outcast their whole lives, and they're not going to like themselves for it. So I think it just kind of depends. Yes, Kyle, you have a question.
I do.
Know your dragons, Kyle.
Just Jesus, you can't do that. I'm trying to have a serious question here. Serious question. So, okay, when it comes to these half dragons, right? Damn it, Sean, you made me lose my train of thought. Shit, hold on, give me a second. Kayla, what were you just talking about?
I was talking about how people want to have power and how some people...
Right, got it, cool, got it, okay. All right, so would this half-dragon concept be a form of lycanthropy in a way? If you're going to play that aspect of that could be something that you could try to do, like, I want to be a werewolf. I want to be a fucking half-dragon. Like, I mean, is that a thing? Can you do that? Or is that... Or half-dragons just NPC bad guys that you fight at some point?
So
You're the DM.
Yeah.
Do it.
True.
I'd say traditionally with lycanthropy, though, it's kind of one of there's always the thing of you having one form and then another, and sometimes you have one that's kind of in between, but mostly it's just you have two forms, if not more. And the choice of sort of the DM and the player is if there's some level of control, or if there's a certain stimuli that forces it to happen, such as the traditional full moon for lycanthropy. But I think half dragons, they are what they are, and they have one form now. They had a form before, but after the ritual, if it's successful, then they have one new form, and it's not so much about shape shifting and that sort of thing. That's my take.
No, I could definitely see it, though, being something that you could undertake as a player to become this half-dragon in pursuit of power, provided it gave you the power that you were seeking. And a lot of people would make pacts with like, you could do like a warlock and have a pact with a dragon, and that would give draconic traits to become a half-dragon. I know there's a lot of homebrew pacts or patrons for things like you could have a genie as a patron, or you could have a dragon or a kraken or any number of very powerful creatures with innate magical ability. So you could definitely do that as a pursuit of power story, or just have it be a template where they gain these abilities from a ritual spell, but then make it have some downsides.
All right.
That would be a really cool story arc, by the way. Just throwing that out there. If someone wanted to do that, and there's like a whole ritual of it, you bathe them in dragon. What? Like, that would be so cool.
If you continue your readings, you will find the prestige class called the Dragon Disciple, and it is actually it ties back to 3rd edition, where it is a class that you can take levels in after you've taken your core class. It's not like it's similar to multi-class, but you have to have prerequisites. But by the time you finish that tree, those levels, you are effectively a half dragon. So you've earned that template through service to this dragon.
All right, we're gonna have to transition to the next part of the show because of time. So we're gonna go into our top 5. So we're each gonna give our top whatever the thing is for the week, and this week is favorite encounter. So this could be one you went through as a player, an encounter that your players went through as a DM, or something from a podcast or whatever. So we'll go around the table. Let's start with Kayla. What is your...
Oh God, don't do that!
What is your favorite encounter?
Well done, Sean. Well done, sir. I love it. Spot check.
What you got, Kayla?
Go first if you want.
And go.
So
5, 4.
Jeez, don't give me a countdown.
3.
Okay, so one of my favorite encounters is actually, I had mentioned previously that I had brought a purple dragon into the campaign that I was running. And my players encountered it, and I was like, finally, they're gonna fight a dragon. And they were all excited. They were like, oh god, we gotta fight a dragon. And then they had like a week to come up with a plan, because that's where we ended the session. I shouldn't have given them a week, because instead they outsmarted the dragon and somehow convinced him to help them. So they basically jumped over the entire arc that I had planned by befriending a dragon, sailing over the maze they were supposed to go through, and defeating the Mind Flayer layer. So that was a whole thing.
Nice.
Well done.
But
Best way to beat a dragon.
It was really cool. But at the same time, as a DM, I was like, damn it! But it was
Hashtag hug a dragon.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hashtag
They
hug a
literally, yeah, basically that's what they did. They hugged a dragon.
This is the answer to all things. Hashtag hug a dragon.
Yeah.
That's a good one, Kayla. That's good. That's a good one. That sounds pretty dope. I like that.
Kyle, favorite encounter?
First of all, I will say, Sean, the only reason, like, not the only reason, but half the reason that it's so enjoyable is that you go up to the mic to do that.
Yes.
It's, like, the best part of it.
Yes. I mean, if I went away, that's just anticlimactic.
It's just whatever.
Yeah.
You could say anything going up to that at this point, and I will lose my shit over it, so it's fine. Okay.
Don't tell him that.
I'm gonna try to keep it somewhat dragon themed since we are talking about it. Might not be like my best favorite encounter ever, but just let's with a dragon topic to it. It holds a little near and dear, close to my D&D heartstrings because it was my first character, and it was also one of the first moments where my first campaign, my only campaign I was playing at my time. My first character, so it's just all still kind of new and wide-eyed and excited for everything. And I don't know what's happening around any corner, which is awesome. We went, we were like in this. It was a dungeon crawl scenario. It wasn't necessarily like a dungeon underground, just exploring the castle dungeon crawl kind of thing. And at the very end, the last room, there was a man. And there was like other two guys, and they're doing some sort of ritual thing at an altar. And our one character kind of like peered in, and I was like, I don't know what they're doing in there. I was like, well, fuck that, let's go see it. I kicked down the door and I bust in, and it turns out that the one guy at the altar like called me his brother, and I'm like, what do you mean? I have no kin and everything. So there's all this storyline, plotline, and at the very end, turns into a fucking Dracolich. And all hell breaks loose, and like some of my allies go down, and I'm like down to like 1 hit point, like all this crazy shit. So, and then he like poofs away. All like it's my favorite encounter because it's not like no one like won or lost. Like a couple people died, but at the same time we brought it back. So whatever. But it's just one of those things where like I will never forget my first encounter with a Dracolich. Man, that was some scary shit. And he called me his brother. And I don't even know what that means. Like I still don't. But that was trying to keep it dragon themed. That was some scary shit. But totally in character. My character does not open doors. He kicks them down and then sees who's on the other side and asks questions later. So it was really fun to see people drop and die, and myself included.
So why did you kick the door down?
Because
it's what your character does? Is that what you just said? That's what your character would do? I thought it was your biggest pet peeve.
What? No.
When someone says, because that's what my character would do?
No.
If you recall, a couple of dragons ago, that was your pet peeve.
Hold on. Let's be specific about it. Like
hypocrite.
When it's something that's negating to the party of like being an asshole, it's because that's what my character do. No, that's not cool. My character had kicked down many doors before. Like that was like more of a quirk than that's what my character would do. Okay, Sean. And I didn't take the time to like lick the door handle, if you know what I mean. Like I just kicked it.
Oh my god!
It wasn't a lick and kick. It was just a kick, just a straight up. We got shit to do. I don't have time to lick the doorknob. Just kick it. But
there is a story behind that, but we'll have to wait for another day.
Another day.
Connor, favorite encounter.
So one of my characters has never actually gotten to a high enough level where a dragon encounter came up. But let's see, my favorite, the most memorable for me was from the original campaign of Critical Role when I don't even remember which color it was, but they were fighting a dragon who was trying to get away, and Scanlan Urtalt, the gnome bard, dimension doored into its stomach.
Okay.
And just the fact that was even a possibility, and just like, what the fuck is happening? It just stands out so well. I know the rogue and Vax'ildan came to help him, and eventually they got out of it. But just the combining the amazingness that is dragons with just like the shit that players come up with, that is just like the pinnacle of that for me, and so that's very memorable to me.
Awesome. Okay.
To tack onto that, Umbrasil is the dragon that you were referring to. But I actually had a character built specifically to do tactics like that, where he was a gnome with a spiked flail that would get swallowed by monsters, and he would just attack them from the inside.
That's hardcore.
Very much so. My favorite encounter, though, this goes back to my high school days when me and my group first started playing D&D. Had no idea what we were doing, so bear with me on the major plot holes. We were traveling between towns. We had myself as a rogue. We had a Bodak monk. We had a half-elf paladin and a human cleric. The paladin was a paladin of Bahamut, and the cleric, I believe, was a cleric of Palor. This is important because both good deities, the DM rolls random encounter table, gets a gold dragon. I think it was an ancient gold dragon, something along those lines. Like, way out of our range, because we were maybe level 6 at the time.
Yeah, that's way too high.
All right.
The monk and I spot it, and we go, nope, and dash. Gone. Completely gone. We full speed booked it out. The paladin and the cleric did not roll high enough on initiative and got stuck in the middle of the road, trapped by the dragon's fear, and the gold dragon breathed fire on them. By the time the Bodak and I got back to the road, there was nothing left but a slagged metal statue of a paladin going, ah! With the cleric cowering behind him.
How'd that go?
Ah!
It's always better the second time.
End of
It
encounter.
kind of was. Oh, that's awesome. Did you just leave the statues there? Like, this is a thing now. We're just gonna.
No, we pushed it off to the side and did a, like, in the dirt, etched a memorial,
Kurtz is
like,
here.
plaque. And yeah, in memoriam.
Yeah. Once a year. they
Hashtag
bring
hug a
flowers.
dragon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Would have been fine if they had followed those rules, but no, they cowered in fear.
You know.
I think I shared this once, but I don't remember when it was. So my favorite encounter was I was running a game around an actual table, and we were using actual tiles and everything. So it was a 3D event, and so my players were supposed to be going up to a castle that was on a floating island, and they had to go in there. There were some dragon cultists, and they had to retrieve some documents, and they were supposed to figure out how to get up to this floating island and go in there and, stealth through all the cultists and everything. So this island was floating there because of these levitation crystals that were on the border of it, and on the ground was the reciprocating crystals, and it was floating over this lake that had a dragon. So the cultists worshipped the dragon and followed him, and he, that's what the symbiosis was. But they weren't supposed to go to the dragon, right? But they went there, they scouted out the area, they found out the dragon was there. Anyway, so they were just supposed to get up to the island and do that, but they decided to go a whole different direction. So they spent a whole bunch of time role-playing, talking to all the people who lived in the surrounding areas, and there was some hill giants, and they went there and they were able to persuade the hill giants and all of the locals to amass this massive army, and they assaulted the dragon that was underneath this floating island. And so all of the dragon was just devouring all these giants and all these people, and they went through and they started attacking the levitation crystals, and they were critting. So I had it break the crystals, and so like the island started like getting all wonky, and they broke enough of them to where the entire island fell, killed the dragon, killed all the cultists in the castle, and just destroyed it all. And so they like just rummaged through all the rubble and found the things are out, and just took off.
Yeah. That's awesome.
So,
Death by Island.
Yeah,
Yep.
it's like if it was a signing experience, we were doing milestone experience. If it was experience based on creatures, they would have gone up so many levels from that.
No, I love when my players do stuff like that. Just like completely off the walls things that you, as a DM, you're like internally going, God damn it! But then you really have to sit back and admire, like,
And you're
just bravo,
well
slow
done.
clap.
Yeah, that was my favorite encounter, and just happened to be a dragon one, so that tied in really well.
I think, yeah.
All right, so now we go to we're gonna blast through because we're running out of time. We're gonna blast through a bunch of stuff real quick. So some relevant news. So we had, unfortunately, a player who ended up leaving our campaign. We were still in our session 0 phase, so we were able to quickly acquire Connor. So he is going to be the fourth player for the campaign that's going to be going. We're going to be resuming the Session 0 content in a few weeks. We still have to get his artwork drawn up for his character and make some new video sequences. When that is done, we will be jumping back into the Session 0 for Tuesdays. We have been talking about doing a Red Dragon Inn session on Tuesdays, just so we're putting out content for you guys to watch. But we will be letting you guys know about that. But Connor, if you want to go ahead and tell a little bit about your character, don't go into backstory, but just who you are and what your character is and stuff like that.
Sure. So I will be playing a half-orc named Urgra, and she is her background is kind of a bounty hunter. She is of the ranger class, and she has found that despite how she looks and how people react to her initial appearance, if she she's able to kill things really good, she's able to track things really good, and she's able to support herself and those she cares about by getting these bounties, and it works for her, and that's her thing.
Okay. And so we just recently went through and identified character types, and it's going to be part of your character's titles. So what are your two types for part of your title?
Just to make sure I don't F it up and get it wrong. There it is. Okay. Urgra is going to be, out of the 8 archetypes that were offered, the dependable as her main one.
Mm-hmm.
So for her, I'm going to the dependable described. If you guys are familiar with how to be a great player or PC, those videos on YouTube, this is sort of what we built this off of. So one of them is dependable, and that is about being very self-controlled, focused, responsible, dedicated, all that sort of thing. And I won't go into too much of her backstory, but she's had some shit happen to her, and so stability is something that's very important to her. And so she likes that. She may be chaotic at times and like kind of fly off the handle at times, but overall she very much she likes control and predictability.
Okay.
And the lesser characteristic of her is ambassador. And so I'm still trying to figure out how I want to play it, but it's sort of personable, and which is interesting for a half orc. We haven't quite decided how half orcs are going to fit into the world, as far as like, are they like hated, are they more accepted, where on the scale that is. But I predict she's going to have a very unique way of solving inter-party relations. It will be effective, may not be exactly what one may initially come up with for ambassador, but I think it's going to work out good.
Okay. So part of the nomenclature of the characters would be like their name and then their 2 types. So it's Urgra, the dependable and ambassador, Finley Shenanigan, the soul and adventurer, Kurtz Glaskin, the protector and leader, and Rin and Norin, the solver and conscience. So that is going to be kind of a theme that we're going to be applying, and hope you guys will be sticking around and watching our campaign as we go through, so you guys can get to know these characters. Welcome, Connor, for joining the family and the team. Really glad to have you aboard. And all right, so that's pretty much it for news. We are going to have more announcements in the future. There'll be a little bit more in the news section, but we're kind of running out of time, so we'll kind of just jump to the next segment, which is going to be Q&A. So if you guys watching have any questions for us, as players, as DMs, our characters, anything about the channel, the stream, anything like that, go ahead and drop it in there. And while we do that, we're going to actually open up a giveaway. So this is going to be for 1,000 HotA points. You have to be a follower to enter into the raffle. And if you subscribe, you are going to double your chances of winning. If we get any subscribers during this giveaway, then we will open up a second raffle afterwards for 10 HotA tokens. So these have our symbol on it, and all of our players have it, and we give them away at the end of all of our segments. So if we get one subscriber during this, then we will open that up as well. So start dropping some questions in there for us, and I will start working on opening up the giveaway. And go ahead and we'll just open discussion for right now until we get any questions. First question, Shadowkill69 says, how long has Connor been playing D&D?
Yeah. So as I said in the beginning of this stream, I grew up in San Diego. I moved to Washington State about 2.5 years ago for a job. And I discovered D&D through Acquisitions Incorporated on YouTube. I quickly bought the 3 basic handbooks, Monster Manual, DM Guide, and Player's Handbook, read through them cover to cover because I really enjoyed the content. And so I've been playing ever since. So about 2.5 years, I started my first homebrew long-term campaign where I was DMing back in March. So my players and I actually just celebrated our 30th episode. We don't record. We are in Roll20, so we're all over the country, but no recordings. But yeah, it's a good group of guys, and I'm really enjoying it. We haven't lost any players yet, which is great. Mm-hmm. And yeah, which means I really had a lot of fun to develop characters and arcs and all that sort of thing.
Okay. So everybody's clear, it's !raffle to enter into the giveaway. It's for 1,000 HotA points. We'll keep it open for a few minutes, and then I will close it and we'll see who wins. Fireside said, well, I guess I should ask, what does each character hope to actually achieve with this adventure, like their personal ambitions for adventuring? Start with Kyle.
Okay, well, I mean, not to get too much into backstory kind of stuff, but I mean,
what's your backstory tie-in, though? Start with that.
Can we use that verbiage of treasure hunter? Yeah. I just did it. Yeah. So I did.
No, you can't.
It's happened.
Yeah.
So the treasure hunter archetype that I have specific to the story, I mean, kind of the words kind of speak for itself. Finley is out in the world adventuring, trying to find, let's just say, artifacts. We'll call it that for now. Again, without getting into too much, he is on a quest to find some shit, and he has joined in with this band of hooligans, if you will, because it makes it a little easier to try to get shit done when you're not by yourself all the time, and you don't have to take on the world by yourself, and finding it a little bit easier to traverse this shithole of a world where horsemen are running around blowing stuff up and making it just not great to live in. So I mean, the end game here is, it's called Horsemen of the Apocalypse for the reason. I mean, there's something that's, going to happen or is happening or is currently happening or has happened, and that's always at the top of the pyramid in terms of big question mark of what can we do to fight against this evil. But yes, Finley does have his own personal goals, and the overall archetype for Finley with the treasure hunter is pretty interesting. It's I'm not gonna lie, just knowing what I know about what I gotta do, it's gonna be kind of challenging, man. Mm-hmm. It's not like just go down to the thrift store and find that thing I need. It's just holy shit. But that'll unfold more as we play. So it's gonna be fun.
Do you want to share a little bit about Tribal, Connor?
Sure. So Urgra, as I said, is a half orc, in the traditional sense, where she is half orc and half human. But Tribal is very much about the bringing together. If you've visited the website, you know that there are 3 main bases on the continent where the campaign will be taking place. They are the Tabaxi, the dwarves, and the humans. And the Tribal is very much kind of the intermediary / finding out the relations and just sort of navigating the relations between the races and trying to come to some sort of peace that has been very much disturbed since the disappearance of the 3 goddesses and the horsemen started appearing. That is what I sort of view as the Tribal's big ol' arc.
Okay. And then the other 2 players are not here with us. So these are Kayla is one of our developers, and Matt is just a guest star who actually DMs for another game that Kyle's in, but they aren't the other players. But the other 2, we have one of them is Duty to the Divine, so he's going to be his destiny, so to speak, is to figure out what had happened and why, and he's going to be pursuing that stuff and be collecting things along the way as well. And then the other one is the Historian, which is Rin, our wizard, and he has a lot of the keys to unlocking the mystery for all the stuff that you guys are going to be encountering, and he's journaling everything into a big book called his manifesto that he's going to be passing on as like the first almanac or encyclopedia. All right, so we can move on to another question. I'm going to be closing the raffle here in just a minute, so if anyone else wants to enter, it's !raffle. Yeah, yeah, go ahead.
So even though I'm in the group, give me your best dragon voice for each of you. If you were playing as a dragon, best dragon voice.
I'll go first.
Okay.
Hold on.
Gotta get some lubricant.
Do you want a good dragon or an evil dragon?
Up to you. Your choice.
All right, evil. All right. Horror. You have not known horror until I have shown it to you. How about that?
That's not bad.
Nice.
Good job. Good job.
Like it.
It's really good.
Roar. Top that, motherfucker! That's why you go first.
To intimidate the others. I really want to hear Kayla's.
Uh-oh. Called out.
Yes.
I don't like this whole being called.
Kayla, purple dragon, go.
Yeah, you already had it created. Know your dragon, Kayla.
No, you're dragon.
Nope.
Oh, you can.
Okay.
We'll come back. We'll come back. We'll come back. It's okay.
Circle back. Circle back. Sean or Connor, who wants to?
I'm trying to think of if I want to do like a good
Connor
one,
looks like
a good
he's,
one,
like,
or
getting all
a
warmed up.
bad one.
You could do one or each.
Okay.
No limits.
Okay.
Gotta like stretch.
Uh-huh.
Channel your inner dragon and release.
I feel like
Dragon,
whatever Connor
damn it.
does, he's gonna like actually morph into a dragon.
It's morphin' time.
Let's see how good my roar is. I don't want to wake up my roommates or anything. It's
Nice.
Yeah. That was pretty good.
get some water.
I feel something there.
That was really good.
I may have peed a little, like just a little came out.
I'm gonna close the giveaway here real quick. Giveaway. All right, so we got 5 in here. We got Fireside, user 5354, Shadow Kills, Baconator, Sub Bacon, and Spaz. All right, close.
Hey.
Giveaway. And pick winner. Here we go. Drum roll, please. User 5354. Nice.
Congrats.
Congratulations. So
Hey.
Oh, Sean, you got to do it in the dragon voice. You got to congratulate him in the dragon voice.
congratulations.
Oh.
Nice.
Yes. Yes.
Gotta find you in the list. There's so many people in here.
What is that?
User. So I'm gonna give you 1,000 points. Go ahead, 5354, and do exclamation point HotA points, just so we can see before and after. Make sure they go through. If I can find you.
Hey.
Anyone that's ever joined the channel gets thrown onto this massive list, and then I gotta scroll through like so many names. There he is. Okay, I'm showing he's got 139, so we will edit it to 1,139.
Hey.
Bam! There you go. It should be in there. All right, congrats. We still need to hear anything dragony from Kayla.
And Matt.
If we get, oh yes, and Matt, if we get a subscriber or even one follower during this last portion, I will open up a raffle to give away 10 of these tokens. If not, we'll have to wait till next week.
Fireside had another pretty good question on there. If you want
Yeah. What was it? Go ahead and read it.
Okay. Fireside 900 says, one more. What do you all think about the extra rewards to give out that they suggest in the DMG? Things like the boons and charms that you can give to religious character or any faithful character, and the various important character-based rewards up to parcel of land with or without a landed title, as compared to just giving out gold.
Thanks, GPS.
Thank you for choosing Kyle reads along.
You have
for
reached
Fireside
Terminal
900.
435. Train will depart in 5 minutes. All right. Extra rewards to give out. So there's the D&D. So the thing about...
I'll answer. I'll
Yeah, go
answer
ahead.
real quick.
Go ahead.
Think of something.
Yeah, go ahead.
As a reward, in a game that I DM for on Wednesdays, every other Wednesday, to make a long story short, my group actually we do milestone leveling, and my group had actually solved a feud that it was happening in the town between these two rival families, and before bloodshed was spilled, they figured out a way to solve the mystery of the town and save the day instead of killing everyone or siding with one family or whatever. But anyway. So, since they did it in a kind of a cool way, instead of rewarding them with how do you reward someone with gold because you saved a town between two families, whatever. I was actually working pretty hard with them to come up with kind of like a mini boon almost that since the group collaboratively solved a problem together in a really cool and unique way. It's nothing like necessarily OP or anything that really broke the game or anything. These mini boons were kind of combat specific and something where it's they could do something on a reaction or, once a day, a bonus action, just very specific stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And, but it was really fun to take that route in terms of, everyone gets 1,000 gold. The families are so happy they're alive. That was something that, okay, I guess I could have done that, but I think this is something that, one, will last. It's going to last the whole game, which is kind of cool. And two was, a little bit different reward for players thinking outside the box to get something done.
Mm-hmm.
Not saying that's going to happen all the time. Every time something happens, it's well, if we take the diplomatic approach, Kyle's going to give us this thing. No, that's not the point. The point was this is the first story arc of team building And I was just really proud of the players for doing it in such a cool, unique way. Why not? Why not try something like that? Why not do something a little different? A little game mechanic that doesn't, necessarily break anything. Just something kind of cool that makes them even a little bit more unique. And so that was really fun. That's a really good question. But that's my answer to the question. Don't know if anybody else has ever done anything like that, but.
For me, I love non-monetary rewards. Things like advantages in politics, where my players can get involved with court proceedings, or earning blessings from their deity, earning blessings from powerful creatures, earning. I even allow for earning of feats, not outside the normal level progression, if they are dedicated to that, because I want my players to get into the mindset of building towards something, earning something, going out of their way to be a hero, accomplishing these great feats, and rewarding them with more than just here's a bag of money, go buy a shiny thing.
A thing that I haven't technically used by name in my campaign, but just sort of a theme is the idea of renown. So if you, once you're well known, like beyond your small village, you go to the city, and like once you're known to like the king of that city, then you are able to access more different like characters. You're able to go on different quests. People know your name. There's different reactions and social things that change in the game as you become more famous or infamous, as sometimes the case may be. And so that's an interesting thing as part of a reward, like as opposed to like getting money. Perhaps you earn a new friend and you open a new side quest if you want to do video game things, which then like leads you to a new thing for your arc, for a character, or even just like a very powerful item that otherwise would have been out of your grasp if you didn't come to this result.
Okay. I love giving outside the box rewards, and personally I hate currency. It can be very beneficial and great in the right context, but it's just another thing I don't like to track and have my players track. Same with encumbrance. To me, it's just I mean, it works in some settings, but not the way I like to do it. So having other things as rewards is pretty fun. You got to be careful though as a DM giving out these things, because if that is your reward system, you can very quickly break the balancing. So CR is already broken as it is, but giving too many things like that, monsters are given challenge rating scores to try to get it close, assuming that they progress on an average incline. And if you give feats and boons and stuff like that, you're going to need to make sure that you also slightly increase the average CR of the encounter. So it's a give and take. It's just, practice for the mechanical side.
Two things to tack onto that. One, as a new DM, I highly recommend not going that route with boons and special things, because you do need the opportunity to learn and experience how the challenge rating system works, how you can tailor it to your campaign and your players, because it doesn't scale linearly. Like, you could throw some very challenging monsters to your party and they steamroll it, or you could throw an easy encounter at them and they fail miserably because of the dice rolls. So learning how that works is important before throwing your boons in there. Even if you're trying to do it to compensate for those terrible moments where it's like, oh, my players are really terrible, what do I do? Well, no, they're not terrible, they just had a bad night. And then the other thing to tack on there with your aversion to currency, I fully agree, because I really feel like currency in a game is like giving gift cards at Christmas. It's where it's the gift you give out when you have no idea what to give your party.
Right.
I like that.
Fair.
And for new DMs who say you want to try to figure out a system, what you can do to get around the, oh shit, I just broke the game, you don't want to give stuff to players and then take it away, because that really sucks for players. You know, like they're hunting for the good stuff. You know, they're there to figure out how they can get ahead. But if you're afraid of giving them something that will permanently break, you can try maybe doing like a temporary buff. So like a boon or a feat or a stat bump or a skill modifier that is on a conditional thing just to test it out. But you got to make sure you tell them right up front that, you know, for whatever reason you're bestowed upon this inspiration from the divine or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But it's only going to last this time frame, whatever you want to give, and let them get a chance to explore that. But if it ends up breaking your game, it's only going to be for a very short period, and you can take that back. But say it ends up working, you can have some magical reason or something that you can present to them to make it a permanent thing. So there are ways around it. Having temporary things with conditions is a really good way to cover your ass, because you do not want to take stuff away from players that they've earned.
Yeah. The other thing for these boons and like beyond like magical items and currency and stuff is you got to be careful to make sure none of your players feel slighted. How like this one person gets this amazing thing and you think everything is balanced, but then another person just like, wow, I really wish I had that item for my character. And so it's also a sort of a tightrope to walk.
It's always going to be a balancing act. And as a DM, the more experience you get, the easier it gets. The more experience your players get with you as a DM, the easier it gets too, because you can always just talk to them. And that's always my big thing. Being able to sit down, talk with your players like human beings and adults and say, here's what I'm seeing. Here's what I'd like to see to fix it. What can we do to accommodate? And
I definitely think, though, that shouldn't happen during a game. It needs to be before or after or in between games. It is really important that, all right, you know, ready, action, you know, game started. From that point on, DM is not your friend, he's not your buddy, he is the DM and you are the players. There is a very delicate balance. You all have different roles to play, and do not question or challenge your DM. If he makes a bad call, you know, or something that's outside the book, you just go with it, do the rule of cool until, all right, campaign's over. All right, okay, now I have something to bring up. And sometimes it's better to bring it up one-on-one, not even in front of other players. Just because your DM put a lot of work into your games. You don't want them to feel disrespected or you're challenging their authority in front of other people. Most DMs should be wanting constructive criticism, but if they're new, I mean, most DMs, I think, are just born out of a group of players. We don't have a DM. Who's going to do it? Well, fuck it, I'll try it out. You know what I mean? So if it's a new group and a new DM, go really easy and support your DM. They go through a lot of work to put your stuff together. So if your DM does give, say, like a +5 magical weapon as a reward and it just breaks the fucking game and he wants to take it away, try to be objective too. You know, like if something does get broken and it does suck, it's some taken away, but it's better to have a balanced game, I think.
It becomes more fun for all of the players by having it balanced. But yeah, still waiting to hear Kayla's dragon voice.
Yeah.
We haven't had yours either, Matt.
I know, I'm aware. I said I would go last.
Oh, okay.
So I'm really not one for voices.
That's okay.
Give it your best shot.
But like, I mean, basically all I did was I just like.
You can just roar.
Lowered my.
Yeah, that's okay.
No, like the dragon voice I use is not because I'm not a guy. I don't have like.
Wait, what?
Voice that I
I'm just kidding.
No, but like, I'm trying to remember. So like, the line I used whenever they came into the cave was, it's been so long since I've had fresh meat. So that was.
Yeah,
that was good.
Very
That's
good.
good.
Very
Good
good.
job. Good
The
job.
beauty of dragons and voicing dragons is they do not have to be bestial because
No.
they can be anything
Greetings,
else.
adventurers. Yeah, it's like what the
He
fuck?
was a very elegant purple dragon.
And that's the thing too. It really depends on the tone you're trying to set with your dragon.
Mhm.
Like, am I trying to be big, mean, and scary, or am I trying to be inviting? Or am I trying to intimidate them?
Yes. Yes.
You should do let's play a game as the first line the dragon says in that voice when they walk in the lair.
I'd like to play a game.
Let's play a game. All right, I don't see any more questions. If you guys have any more, let us know. Otherwise, we are going to be concluding the show. Oh, wow, here's a big one. The demand gold for... Okay, last one from Fireside. With the demand of gold for spell components on spell casters, do you all just compensate it by giving out gold easily enough and using currency only to give them the ability to cast the vital spell, or do you go for a way around it and give them a different stable and much more easy route than just trying to gather gold because blah, blah, blah. Okay, so I hate this roadblock. And what we have done for our campaigns, we're doing a completely different mechanic though, is the components are not really a thing we're really looking at. We're just using the focus as the thing that channels the power. It's a give and take. Whatever mechanical change you make, it should be play tested, and I would run the idea by other people who have some experience if possible, to just make sure it has a balance. So we've made some changes to make it balanced. Just like the idea of like, I don't necessarily like limiting a player's gold if they have to buy arrows and they're a ranger. I mean, like, you know, if he has 20 arrows and it's a long encounter that you set up and he runs out of arrows.
There's multi-attack. Yeah.
Yeah, you know, I mean, you can burn through ammo really quick. So whatever route you go, it needs to be consistent throughout the campaign. But your encounters should be set up to where they're not going to run out if you're going to have them track it. Or if they do, have it be for a good reason. But it's going to, like, that's really shitty. Because, like, a fighter, what, does his sword get more dull? Does he lose, you know, does it break? Fighters have a huge advantage. So, I mean, whatever thing you apply in your game, I think it needs to be balanced across all players, to where it affects all of them or none of them. But that's my own personal take on that.
For me, in a campaign that I ran way long ago, it wasn't even 5th edition, but there was no currency. It was all barter system.
Mm-hmm. That's popular.
Spells that required monetary spell components, because regular spell components, a component pouch should be fine. If it has a gold value, then we need something to replace it. So what I ended up doing is there were runes that the player could make. They had to take time crafting these runes and imbuing them with magic to replace a material spell component that had a gold value. Depending on the gold value determined how long it would take to make, and the higher level they got, the faster they could make them, so that those spells that had high material costs, like perfect example is Revivify. When you first get Revivify as a 3rd level spell, it takes you a while to make the rune because you're not familiar with the spell. But then once you hit maybe 10th level or so, you're good. You can inscribe that rune 2-3 times a day and be just fine. And it keeps pace with the approximate gold value of the treasure that they had. So that way they're always getting something for their spell components that is related to the spells that they want to cast.
I like that a lot.
All right. Last question, and then we're gonna end. It was from user 5354. I have a question. When is it an appropriate time to kill a PC? Do you guys wait a minimum number of levels, or just kill them off level 1 if the dice roll the wrong way? So, this is a very good question, and it varies. So, I would say the first thing a DM and players should do when they sit around a table is go over expectations. DM says, this is what I expect of you guys, and this is the type of game that I want to run. Now, what are your guys' expectations of me, and what kind of game do you guys want to play? And there needs to be a compromise and a mediation met, because you don't want people to not be having fun. And this is a game, and that's the whole point of playing, is for people to have fun and role play in a collaborative storytelling experience. Now, during that, there's several things that your DM should be asking you as players. What do they expect to be able to do and not do to have a good time? If your players are okay with their characters dying, then I don't think you should just kill them. But if they die, you let them die. But if that's something to where that is going to ruin, like, no, I've poured my heart and soul into this character, I don't want him to permanently die, that's something you need to think about, because if their character dies, you might lose somebody from the table. There are other things to go around death. There's resurrection, there's magical means, their soul could be trapped into, imbued into an object that the other characters carry around. You know what I mean? Would that player be okay with re-rolling another character? But then you got the problem of reintroducing another character. So it's just about, there's no wrong way, I think, to do this. It's just get a feel for the expectations of everybody. But at the same time, this is a fantasy world with lots of magic and beasts and swords, and sometimes people die. And I think if you could just explain to your players that if you look at any good story, people die, and sometimes it's the heroes. It's not necessarily that you can't win D&D. It's tell the best story you can, and look at Romeo and Juliet, main characters, and they die, but it's about the journey they go through. Do you guys have anything else to add?
For one, to tack on to what you were saying, it's like the difference between Lord of the Rings and Game of Thrones for some games. In Lord of the Rings, characters die. They have very good dramatic deaths and very epic scenes. In Game of Thrones, they just die. But for me, it depends on if I'm working with a new group. If I'm working with a brand new group, it doesn't matter if they're experienced players or not. I tend to give a bit of leeway, and I tell them up front, I'm probably not going to kill you unless you do something horrifically stupid. But if they do something horrifically stupid, then the dice are going to determine whether or not they die.
Right. It's not the DM that killed you.
No.
The monsters kill you. You know what I mean?
Right. But I'll usually give a bit of a level cushion there to get a feel for the players, get them to trust me as a DM that I'm not out to murder them. Unless that's what we established in session 0, where yes, this is straight up a meat grinder campaign. You die, that's it. But for the most part, especially if I'm focusing a lot on story, I'm going to give them that leeway to build their characters, to build the party relationships, to build up to that point, so that way when I do finally kill one of their characters, it hurts more.
Right. And also to the context of the game. Is it a one-shot? Is it a 2-year campaign? Is it, like we're going to play 6 sessions? Is it like we're going through this portion of a module? Sometimes it's appropriate to kill a character, and sometimes it's not. I would just, the rule of cool and the rule of fun, if I wouldn't kill off somebody who's brand new to D&D. If someone's brand new, even if they made a mistake, I would definitely allow them to not permanently be dead, because they're in the infancy stage. This is such an amazing, complicated, fun game. You don't want to turn people off. So if they're brand new, I would say never. But what's that?
Oh, I had a new player at one point that I did kill, and this was when I was still learning how to DM. Freaked out. I thought he was gonna never show up to the table again. Instead, between sessions, we discussed how we could turn his ghost like him coming back into his own campaign arc, into a one-shot that he and I played that entire week, and found a way to get him back into the game.
Right.
So death can have meaning, death can have value, even with new players. But then ever since that point, he started playing a lot smarter because he definitely
Right.
wanted to go through that again.
Right, because there's dead and then there's dead. It's kind of like on what was that? Princess Bride. Oh, he's only mostly dead.
Yes.
So, yeah, don't be afraid of having mostly dead at any point in the time. There should be ramifications. You know, if like Kurtz in one of the the episodes we had, he just ran and jumped over hot lava and landed on this pillar. I mean, if he fucks up his deck save and falls into the lava, he should die. You know, like you don't live going into lava. You just don't. You know, unless you're immune to fire or whatever. But if someone does something stupid or they just get fucked on a dice roll, I mean, you got to go with it. But there's mostly dead and then there's dead.
Yeah.
The session 0 is always a good time to knock that kind of stuff out.
Yes.
Like in a campaign with I think in our Monday game, if I'm not mistaken, Matthew, it was more, and I think I said it with my Wednesday group too, in a session 0 kind of thing. But if I'm not mistaken, for our Monday game, it's like, character building, learning yourself, learning the group, and I believe we agreed on like 4 or 5. I think it was like 5. It's more of like a, this has been fun. This has been good. You've learned a little bit. Now the gloves are off, so you've had your warning, and now dumb things are not my problem anymore, and that's fine because everyone agreed to that, and now everyone's on the same page with that. So it's good. It's good to set that, because if you don't, then shit gets batshit crazy real quick. If that, so it's good. It's good to do that. It's good to iron that shit out. Everyone's on the same page.
I encourage session 0s.
Me too.
Every time.
Yep. Play them, overplay them, however many you think is the appropriate amount, add a couple more. Like, it cannot hurt. I know people get really anxious. I want to start now. Well, you should be playing your hardest, and you should be trying to embody your character as much as you can, no matter whether it's session 0 or campaign anyway. So, session 0s only help. It's kind of like the sanding on a paint job. Like, it's the most important base. If you cheap out on that, it's going to affect the flow of everything else. All right, we have actually gone over a little bit on time. We got some people who live on the East Coast and they gotta get up early, so we are going to end it here. We want to thank every single one of you guys for joining us. Red Dragon Inn is something we really love doing. We love talking D&D with you guys. Thanks for supporting us. Drop a follow and a like, or not a like,
Follow?
Subscribe.
and subscribe. Sorry, yeah.
There it is. You did it.
Sure.
Got
Show
you.
some love for us. We on Wednesdays we're gonna keep doing this 6:30 p.m. Pacific every week, and then Tuesdays our campaign will be starting up soon. Look for these guys. We have a lot of fun, and we will see you guys next week. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks, Connor. Thanks for joining us, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for showing up.
Yes. Thanks,
And
Matt.
remember, don't meddle in the affairs of dragons, for you are crunchy.
Hug a dragon. Hashtag hug a dragon, guys. Know your dragons.
All right. See you guys.